Welcome back to the Bourbon and BS podcast. This is episode 136. I am joined by many special people here tonight, and one in particular I want to welcome, Gregg Snyder. Gregg, welcome. He is from Chicken Cock Whiskey. Coming from, where are you at tonight?
I actually live in Floyd's Knobs, Indiana.
Okay.
It's right across the river from Louisville, Kentucky.
Oh, nice. Nice. So you're not too far, really, from us in Columbus, Ohio.
Nope. About a couple hour drive. It's not bad.
Perfect. Before we get started, I want to thank our sponsors, Tinder Box at Easton. We are going to be smoking by way of General Cigars tonight. We're going to be smoking the Diesel Esteli Puro, which I'm looking forward to. So thank you to Jonathan, who is also with us tonight, Jonathan Herring from General Cigars. We appreciate you bringing that, being a part of this, and also just being a big supporter of the show. Altadis USA, also, I do have some. I don't think we're going to get to them tonight because you also brought a newer one that we smoked on the podcast previously.
Yep.
Which was a CAO Bones from Ricky Rodriguez and CAO, which is also through General Cigars. So check those out for sure. Diesel is already shipping.
Yeah, this week.
Okay, Diesel Esteli Puro is shipping. We'll get into that a little bit later on here. And also BS Cigar Company, we appreciate that as well. The gold and silver are available, so check that out as well. And also, I do want to throw this out here. And Gregg, I appreciate your patience here. We got patreon.com. We've got a lot of support, which we appreciate from all of you guys that are listening. Share it, like it, subscribe, whether you're on Facebook, YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Luminary. I don't know. There's all sorts of podcast listeners. So the audio also drops after this, but this is the most fun part, is the live aspect of it. So if you're available on Wednesday nights around 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, you can join us and you can be a part of the conversation, which we love. And patreon.com/Bourbon and BS podcast is a way for you to get some support to us, which we appreciate. It helps us do this type of thing. And then also get a stylish t-shirt. So there's 3 different tiers, and you can do that. Check it out. And or you can reach out to me, and I'll be happy to walk you through that as well. So we appreciate all the support and all the patrons so far. Looking out to sending out more t-shirts. Let's see. What else? Any other housekeeping here? Anyone? How are things?
Good.
Cool.
Life is good.
Good. That's really cool, guys.
I'm on the road, so that's nice.
That is good.
Yeah, so
That
it's
is
feeling
good.
a little normal out there. A little more normal.
It is a little normal, and we're going to talk about a little bit in that part 2, guys. Is the fact that time to regroup is the subject for part 2 tonight. So I'm interested to see where that conversation goes as well. So without further ado, guys. Gregg, I really appreciate you being a part of this. I know you're a busy guy. I was actually pretty blown away by the information that Aaron, who is kind of in charge of some of your PR and marketing, who is my contact, and you guys were so kind and generous enough to send us some of this, the whiskey, the bourbon, and the rye, which we found out right before going live, which is I'm happy we did that because I feel like some of the tasting notes might have been a little off.
Yeah.
However, blown away by the experience you have in the industry. And, I kind of, I don't want to say apologize, but you're kind of a behind the scenes kind of guy, it seems, most of the time. Is that accurate?
Well, yeah, I've spent pretty much my entire career in the operation side of it. So pretty much from soup to nuts. So.
That's amazing. And Chicken Cock Whiskey is one so we're based out of Ohio, and this is one that is not available to us in Ohio, unfortunately, but you guys are distributed to multiple states, and there is a great history behind Chicken Cock Whiskey, and it was really interesting to read up on it. And it's kind of unfortunate that it's not available in some states because it seems like there is such a good interest in it, since, 2011, I believe, that you guys kicked it back off. But it dates back to the 1800s. Is that correct?
That's right. Actually, yeah. Well, first and foremost, I want to thank you guys for allowing me to join you tonight. I look forward to these types of things and love sharing some of my history and the history of the brand itself and Chicken Cock. But yeah, Chicken Cock actually dates back to 1856. It originated in Paris, Kentucky. And so it's an old brand with a ton of history. The brand grew and did well up until Prohibition. And unfortunately, it wasn't a big enough company to acquire a medicinal alcohol permit. So like most distilleries, it shut down. And the brand was actually sold to a company up in Montreal, Canada. And in Montreal, they made a rye whiskey. They actually put that rye whiskey in the Chicken Cock label and put the bottle inside a tin can. That way it protected the bottle when they bootlegged it across the border into the U.S. But it showed up in a lot of speakeasies, and probably one of its biggest claims to fame for Chicken Cock is it was the house whiskey at probably the most famous speakeasy, and that's the Cotton Club up in Harlem, New York. And
That's
so right before Prohibition ended, the brand was reacquired by the company that was owned by National, actually eventually became National Distillers. They had a medicinal alcohol permit, and so they actually started the distillery back up in Paris, and actually were bottling whiskey for medicinal purposes. And have you ever heard of the Oscar Getz Museum?
What was it?
It's called Oscar Getz Museum. It's a museum.
I have not. I don't know if you guys have. No.
If you ever get down to Bardstown, Kentucky, you need to stop there. They have the whole history on Kentucky bourbon, Kentucky whiskey, and they have a lot of the old bottles, pre-Prohibition bottles. But they even have one of the bottles that had the medicinal alcohol label on it of Chicken Cock. So it's a lot of neat stuff on the display down there, and you can see the whole history of it. But
what time
anyhow,
frame were you in there at that point?
I'm sorry.
What time frame was that? You said Prohibition time.
So yeah, that was right at the end of Prohibition. So
Yeah.
Prohibition ended in 1933. So when it was repealed. So after Prohibition was repealed, the brand did well and grew again. And somewhere around the 1950s, the distillery actually burnt down. So unfortunately, the company at that time decided not to rebuild the distillery, and so the brand sat idle. And as you mentioned, Steve, in about 2011, the founder of Grain and Barrel Spirits, Madi Antela, actually discovered the brand and acquired it, and had a vision to resurrect it back to Kentucky. And 2017, a little over 3 years ago, I've been in the spirits industry now over 42 years.
Damn.
But in 2017, I decided to get out of the corporate rat race and decided to start my own consulting company. And so,
oh boy, I like that.
And so that's how I got connected with Madi and Grain and Barrel Spirits and the brand. And so he shared that vision with me. And so I helped him with the supply chain with some other brands that they have. And eventually he asked me to serve in the role of master distiller for him. So that's how I kind of got connected with the brand, and I've had a lot of fun with it. It's a great old brand.
Well, so you go from the corporate side of it. Now this is the corporate side that there's a lot of ties to, obviously, the distillery industry, right? I mean, that's when I look at your experience, it is tied heavily to the bourbon industry. Is that correct?
Well, yeah, as I mentioned, I started in this industry in June of 1978. I think I mentioned to you guys before the show that I'm a graduate of Indiana University, and right out of school, one of the interviews I got, I have a business degree, and one of the interviews I got was with Seagram. Joseph E. Seagram's and Son had a facility in Louisville at the time, had a distillery in Louisville, and so that's where I started my career. And it was a great training ground. I started as a frontline supervisor. At that time, if you're aggressive, you wanted to learn, and you pick things up fairly quickly, they gave you an opportunity to learn. And so I was kind of put on a fast track and basically worked in every single department within that facility before it shut down in 1983. They actually consolidated plants. The whiskey industry was on a decline at that time, and so as many companies did, they kind of shut down some facilities and consolidated. But literally, I worked, from the distillery dryer house to the barrel warehouse, filling barrels, putting barrels in the warehouse, taking barrels out, dumping barrels.
Really?
Regaging, processing, filtration, receiving, shipping, bottling, maintenance, quality.
You didn't learn that in business
every
school,
single
did you?
department I had an opportunity to work in. So it was a great training.
What was the turn? What got you into this then? I mean, at that point, you said you graduated, right?
Yes, I graduated with a business degree.
Yeah, right. And so, yeah, like Jonathan kind of joked about, like, that you didn't learn that in business school. Like, where's the left turn here into this industry?
It's baptism by fire, as they say.
Okay.
I didn't have any background going into it. They were just looking for people that they could bring in and train. And like I said, it was fabulous. Had a great opportunity there. So that kind of paved the way and laid the foundation for my entire career. Because once I got into it, man, I loved it. Absolutely loved it. And but when they shut down, when Seagram shut down in 1983, I actually had an opportunity to relocate with them, and I was going to end up at their new corporate facility in headquarters in New York City. and that wasn't in my game plan at that time.
No.
And so I decided to take the severance package. They paid for my education for a year, so I got my MBA, which was part of my plan to begin with, and then shortly thereafter went to work for Brown Forman.
Yeah.
Brown
What year
Forman.
was that?
Pardon?
What year were you with Brown Forman?
From 86 to 98, I guess it was 12 years.
Okay.
So I basically worked for Brown Forman. Started out in the bottling, managing the bottling operation on the afternoon shift, and did that for a little over a year. And then I got promoted and was responsible for all their materials, dry goods that went to the bottling operation, being the bottles, the closures, the boxes, whatever. And then likewise picked up additional responsibility for all the wet goods. We were bottling, tank trucks from Canadian Mist, from Canada coming down. The Early Times warehouse was part of my responsibility. Pepe Lopez.
A wide variety of experience all over the
board.
Yeah.
So, but again, I worked there 9 years, and then from there, I actually was promoted and went out to the cooperage. And so Brown Forman is the own distillery that actually, makes their own barrels. And so for 9 of the 12 years I worked for Brown Forman, I managed their cooperage operations. And so that was great experience as well, because I'd always, made whiskey and bottled whiskey and aged whiskey. And as many people don't realize, the barrel is such an integral part of making a quality whiskey.
Right.
60 to 70% of the flavor in that finished bottle actually comes from the white oak barrel.
Right.
Wow.
And so again, it was a great opportunity. It kind of gave me insight and exposure and knowledge to an area that many people don't have in the industry. So,
well, it sounds like a hell of a resume. I gotta be honest. And as you kind of alluded to, it sounds like a great time. I mean, that you're doing something. There's that age-old saying, as we all know, right? You don't work a day in your life if you love what you do, and that's, first of all, it's a lie, because work is work, and it always comes back to that. There's always going to be a day that it feels like work. I guarantee you that to anyone that's in an industry.
That's right.
I'm sure you felt like that, Greg. I know I felt like that in the cigar industry. You guys as well. There's always going to be days it feels like work, but when you're running 40-some years in this, I think that it's safe to say the majority of the days brought a smile to your face looking back. Is that accurate?
Absolutely. You said there's good days and bad days, and sometimes are more difficult than others. But yeah, all in all, it's been a great ride, and I hope to continue riding it as long as I can.
What position, if you had to pick one? Because I'm like listening to this, you're just rattling off all these things that you've done in the industry. Was there ever like one of these things, like you got into the cooperage side of it, or you were in the in the rick houses? Was there ever a time where they're like, all right, you're going to do this next, and you started doing something and it was just not really your favorite? What was I'm not trying to put a negative on it, but it's like, what was the least favorite part of this entire process that you've been a part of for so long? You've learned all these different steps of it. Like, what was the least favorite of all the things you've done so far?
Yeah, I don't know. The least favorite, I don't know that I can really pinpoint one particular aspect that I say is the least favorite.
How about the favorite?
Favorite, just being in the industry. I mean, the people in the industry. It's in the operation side of this industry, it's a bit unique, and I don't know how the cigar business is, but even though we're competitors on the operation side, there's a brotherhood there. We look out for each other in Kentucky, always have. And when I left Brown Forman, I was managing director at Wild Turkey Distillery for over 10 years, and a great example. If I had a motor burnout and I didn't have a spare, I could call any of the other local distilleries. If they had one, they'd throw it in the truck and bring it over to me, or vice versa. That happened all the time. And so
take care of your own kind, right?
Yeah, we have a respect for each other and take care of each other. Now the marketing and sales side can be a little bit more cutthroat sometimes and more competitive, but the industry's always been that way, and that's probably one of the most enjoyable aspects of it.
And I think the cigar industry is a lot like that on the operations side and the manufacturing side. They help each other out. A lot of people make cigars for each other. They sell tobacco back and forth between the factories. And like you said, I think on the sales and marketing side, it is a little more cutthroat, but it's still a brotherhood inside being a cigar rep. I mean, we help each other out, and I've had plenty help me out and vice versa. So, I think there's a lot of similarities in the industry.
For sure.
The kind of cool thing about you guys is the geographic location. I mean, it's all pretty central right there.
Yeah, you know, they say 95% of all bourbon whiskey made is in Kentucky, and you know, you then don't go too far outside of Kentucky, and you pick up a pretty large percentage, the rest of the percentage, pretty much. So, yeah, it's you know, and that's the thing. You know, you promote your brands, and even today, I mean, I try to be a good ambassador for the industry, always have, and you know, you don't want to hurt your industry,
right?
All right, so I this is probably the longest we've gone without sipping on whiskey.
Okay.
The history of the show.
I know. Well, in the history of the show,
Yes,
and
it is.
I feel bad.
We beat the old record by 6 minutes.
We have such limited, you know, amounts of this. Normally, we're sipping on, you know, as we get talking, we get to know each other, which usually, you know, also fuels the conversation a bit, as we all know. But let's start with one as we continue talking, if you don't mind, and you can kind of highlight this.
Yeah.
And then we can get back into it a little bit. But would you rather start with, we've got the two, we've got the straight bourbon and we have the rye.
Yeah, I want to start with the Chicken Cock Kentucky Straight Bourbon, if we could. Okay. You know, the rye, you get some more spicy, peppery notes, and so I think it's always good to start with a bourbon. So
yeah,
again, how I usually do these tastings, I like to get your input. What do you pick up instead of me giving you my insight and what I'm smelling, what I'm tasting, and kind of maybe set your mind one direction or the other. I like people to give me their honest feedback.
Absolutely.
On the nose, I get like an apple on the nose. Like as I was sipping it, I was breathing in through my nose, and I got this bright apple aroma.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely agree. I don't know if I could
said,
pinpoint
yeah,
apple,
like
but
it's like citrus.
I get some fruit. Yeah.
Yeah.
It smells delicious.
It does.
I get more of a little bit more of a tart fruit on the palate. Like not an apple. It's something unless maybe Granny Smith, but I was thinking something more like a tangerine or something.
A little citrus in there. I think so, right? Yeah, a little citrus.
Got some sweetness, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's on the mouth, on the palate. Yeah. That's where the vanilla and caramel really start to come across, and you get some of that sweetness, and it extends into the finish as well.
Yeah,
it's fantastic. Yeah.
What's the age on this?
So this is one of those that unfortunately it's a sourced whiskey. Okay.
Okay.
Give you a little bit more history on the brand, and while you're sipping that, but currently, I mentioned that Monty, the founder of Grain and Barrel Spirits, wanted to resurrect it back to Kentucky. So one of the first things I did was help him negotiate a contract with Bardstown Bourbon Company. You guys familiar with them?
Yes.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. And so they've been around now for 4 years, I guess. Great people. Steve Nally, their master distiller, is a good friend of mine. He's one of the few guys that's still in the industry that has a couple more years than I do in it. So, but good people, and they're making a great product. But I gave them the mash bill. Our mash bill basically for our whiskey that we're laying down is 70% corn, 21% rye, and 9% malted barley. And in August, a little over 2 years ago, August of 2018, we laid down our first 600 plus barrels at Bardstown Bourbon Company. So it's aging right now. In February, the following February of 2019, we laid down another 600. And then this past March, we laid down another 600. So coming 2021, we're going to actually up that. We're going to do probably about 300 barrels of rye and about 900 barrels of whiskey. So it's growing. It's growing. In the meantime, to bridge that gap until all that becomes mature, part of my responsibilities, I go out and I try to locate good quality whiskey that we can put under the Chicken Cock label to kind of bridge that time frame. And so that's what this is, the source. Now, unfortunately, as the age and so forth, this is actually, we had to sign a non-disclosure when we acquired this. So I'm kind of limited on what I can share with you. I'm a big believer in transparency, and I will share with you what I can. So
now, is part of that non-disclosure, is that going to be where you're sourcing it from?
Right.
Okay.
Exactly. Yeah.
So
but
there's a bit of a mystery to it.
So, but it's a blend of whiskeys. I can tell you that. What I can tell you, there's nothing real young in there. It's pretty much older whiskey. I mean, I don't know if you picked up any of the oak tannins on the flavor as well. got some pretty nice black tones with that sweetness of the caramel and vanilla. And it's got some very old whiskey in it as well. Very old bourbon in it. So
it did not taste young at all.
No.
So I was kind of surprised with as light as the color was. I thought it was going to taste a little younger. It did not taste.
That'll be a little deceiving. Those small sample bottles that they sent you guys, the true color doesn't come out. If you get a 750 milliliter, well, I don't have a lot one because I've been doing a lot of podcasts on this.
Is that all podcasts from today, right?
Yeah.
That's a good day.
Yeah, for the last couple months anyway. But
sure.
Anyhow, it's
it does
it can be deceiving. The color can be deceiving.
Like in your feed, it does look darker in the glass.
Yeah, I am no whiskey expert at all. So coming from that, but I mean, there's little to no bite to me. I mean, there's a little bit of heat on the back end, but not much at all. But it's very easy drinking. I know the word smooth gets overused, but it's incredibly smooth, and I think it's very tasty.
Are you allowed to disclose the proof?
No, it's actually on the bottle. It's 90 proof, and I was just going to touch on that. You said the smoothness, and you're right. That term is overused, but
right.
I call it a Kentucky hug. You want to feel a little of that warmth as it's going down your throat and into your body, but. And 90 proof, and the rye that you're going to have next is also 90 proof.
Okay,
that seems to be the sweet spot for the products that we've tried and the product we've made. We've done some higher stuff. We actually have a barrel proof coming down the pike here, but we're going to bottle it in probably middle of next month, middle of October. But it's what you want to do is you want to add just enough water to kind of minimize that alcohol bite.
Right.
So that you can open up the caramel and vanilla flavors and all the other, fruity and floral flavors that you want to kind of overexceed and take over the profile versus the alcohol bite. So felt 90 proof did the trick on this one as well.
It's really easy drinking, which is what I like about it, is that you've got, like you were mentioning, the caramel. There is like a creaminess almost to it, almost like
got a nice buttery mouthfeel too, doesn't it?
Yeah, very pleasant. Yeah,
it's an oily texture.
Yeah, I mean, it's just. You said you added water, or you prefer to add water? I'm sorry, I had to step away.
No, I'm drinking it neat. I
got you.
Me personally, I like it either neat or on the rocks. Typically, the ice melting enough is just enough to open it up, and that makes a difference. A lot of people just put a little bit of water in there, and it's amazing the flavors it can open up by doing that sometimes. Yeah.
Well, it's fantastic. I do wish we had a fifth of it instead of the 200s. So the closest is, you said you guys are distributing now to Indiana, and you're also distributing to obviously Kentucky. Those
right.
Would probably be how about Pennsylvania?
Not yet.
Okay.
And same thing with Pennsylvania, Ohio being control states. It's a little bit more difficult to get your foot in the door and
right.
Get distribution. But
luckily, I live in Kentucky, so I'll be able to find some. So I'm happy about that.
Yeah, for sure. Sure.
What's your opinion on controlled versus not controlled states?
It's I don't know. Again, it's more difficult to operate in control states. But again, I really don't have an opinion one way or the other. It's just the way that things have evolved over time. When I started in the industry, a number of the control states, you had to actually put a state stamp. It was actually a tax-paid stamp.
Right.
On the bottle. Today they're not doing that, but it was actually a decal. You had a sheet of them, and you had to wet that sheet, and then you took your finger and swiped it off the sheet onto the shoulder of the bottle. It was going down the line.
Really?
But it had a tax value to it, and you had to buy those from the state to put on the bottle before that bottle was shipped into that state. And so luckily that's gone by the wayside, but there's still a lot of strict rules and regulations and tax dollars involved. So
I've got a question for you, because I'm a little bit of a Jimmy Russell fanboy. I've met him a couple times. He's not been, just the nicest guy. So that's one of my favorite distilleries. I take people when they come out of state, and I always take them there. You got any? What's your insight on that? I mean, you were there 10 years. I mean, that's
Yeah, it's a great place. When I left Brown-Forman, again, I actually became the vice president of Austin Nichols and was managing director. And so Jimmy and Eddie worked for me for a little over 10 years, and there's no better person in this world than Jimmy Russell. I mean, I can't say enough good
It's really
things.
cool to hear, honestly.
Yeah.
He is the last of the true Mohicans when it comes to the master distillers that grew up with corn dust under their fingernails and actually making the product. He's the prince. And actually, truth be known, I don't know if you guys like Russell's Reserve. I created the brand Russell's Reserve. So
hang on.
I bought a bottle and brought it tonight, having no idea that was yours.
Yeah.
The single barrel rye is what he brought.
Well, they've done a lot of things and come out with a bunch of different renditions since we started that. But in 1998, that was actually a brand that I created. It was, as I said, the bourbon industry was kind of declining at that time. And one of the first things they asked me to do, it was owned by Pernod Ricard at the time. And they asked me to take a look at their inventory. They thought they had too much whiskey. So I said, well, I need to know what your sales forecast is.
Yeah.
So they said, well, figure 2%, on all the brands for the next 3 years. I said, well, that's great, but you got some 12-year-old product. I need to know out at least 12 years to know what to make so we can be available to sell 12 years down the road. So they said, well, just figure 2% growth on everything, which I built this liquidation model. And when I got done with it, I told them, I said, well, the truth is you don't have too much whiskey, but you have too much older whiskey. The finance group in New York City was ones that were actually dictating which barrels were being pulled out of the warehouse to dump. And, Wild Turkey 101 is probably at that time was like 75% of their total sales.
Right.
They were using 6.5-year-old bourbon for the Wild Turkey 101. Well, if it became another year older, finance said, oh no, that's more expensive now. We can't use that. We're just going to use 6.5. Well, so they got their inventory out of balance.
Right.
And so, the Pernod Ricard management said, well, what can we do? I said, well, first and foremost, you're going to have to bite the bullet. You're going to have to start using some of this older whiskey and blend it in with the 6.5-year-old, not in huge percentages, but enough to use it up without dramatically changing the taste profile.
Yeah.
The second option is you can try to sell aged whiskey, but at that time, nobody was buying aged whiskey, totally unlike it is today. But nobody was buying aged whiskey. I said, or the third option is, you can create a new brand. Okay, well, what should we call it? And I said, well, it's high time this company paid tribute to probably one of the greatest master distillers that ever lived, and that's Jimmy Russell. Yeah, well, okay, what could we call it? I said, well, for lack of a better name, why don't you call it Russell's Reserve?
No, you shitting me.
Wow.
So we had some great 10-year-old, and Jimmy didn't know this. Jimmy didn't know this was happening. And so one day I asked Jimmy, I said, Jimmy, how about running up to B Warehouse, 4th floor? So we got some great 10-year-old up there. I'd like to sample that. And so I had a meeting with the union that afternoon or whatever, and we were wrapping up, and I hear a knock on my door, and here comes Jimmy, and he's got this glass, going out here. He said, here's that whiskey you wanted to taste, Greg. And I got it. I got it, about a foot from my nose, and man, the caramel vanilla, I couldn't believe it. And you got to know Jimmy, Jimmy wouldn't cuss if he had a mouthful, but he just gave me that little grin and just kind of nodded like, man, that's good stuff.
That's amazing.
We didn't know what we were doing. And so, so anyhow, marketing said, yep, that's good stuff. We're going to bottle. It was bottled at 101. We actually used the regular tall Wild Turkey bottle at the time. I don't know if you've ever seen in the old style bottle first came out, but it was 101 proof, true to the Wild Turkey fashion, I guess.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
It was called Russell's Reserve, and it was 10-year-old bourbon whiskey. But when Jimmy later found out that, we were paying tribute to him and calling, naming the whiskey after him, he kind of shed a couple tears and was really taken by it. But great guy, a dear friend, and I think the world of him.
It's beautiful.
That is amazing story. I got to be honest. That's an amazing story. All right.
Love everything with that Russell's label on it.
We all do.
Yeah.
What's in store with Chicken Cock Whiskey? We get a lot. I'm sure you get this all the time. And I'm trying not to curse, especially after you said that about Jimmy Russell. But it's a lot harder for me. Yeah. Anyways, everyone's asking.
He's a better man than you. So
he's a much better man than me. That's not saying much, not about him, but mostly about me right there. But I will say that the name Chicken Cock Whiskey, right? I mean, we're going back to the 1800s with this name. I don't think people laughed like fifth graders like people do now. about the name Chicken Cock. But where are we coming from with this name? Because that's the common question I'm seeing on the feed is that, the name, like where is this coming from? And especially, like I said, not everyone knows that this is an age-old brand name. I mean, this is something that goes back, and I don't think you hit the history on it, and we don't have to dive into too much. One of the things that fascinated me was the founder of this passed away a few years after he founded it. That was really, really fascinating how it kind of went to one of the guys working for him, and then it moved on. But this name, Chicken Cock, Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey, and now you have the rye, and you're taking it to all new heights here. At least that's the plan. But where's the name coming from? I got to ask.
So that's a valid question. I get that asked all the time, and I do tastings, various stations here and there, and people come up, and that's the first thing to look at, and they said, "Where'd you get that name?" And I said, "Yeah, I didn't create it."
No,
said, it originated in 1856. In 1856, you have to remember, Americans were still using Old English. Okay, and in England, a male chicken was called a cock. The term rooster did not actually come into play until the late 1800s, early 1900s. It's actually derived from the Puritan sect. The term cock started taking on a sexual connotation.
Stop laughing. That's ridiculous.
English slang. And so the Puritans actually came up with the term rooster. So yeah.
So I feel like you only know this history because you get asked this question all the time, especially since you started working for this.
You get asked, you do a little research, and that's
because you were wondering the same thing when you got hired on. You're like, all right, hang on, I gotta ask this question. I feel like that's the natural thing to do these days. Sadly, like I said, we're all a bunch of fifth graders, but so let's dive into the rye here, and then I kind of want to get into you had talked about the different barrels that you guys have coming. When is there going to be new product, or are you going to basically keep kind of the same labels for the straight bourbon whiskey, and it's just going to go from being sourced to original product that you guys distilled? Or do you guys plan on just keeping this product as the sourced whiskey and then coming out with new labels and everything else?
No, the plan is to basically get to the point where we're producing all of our own. I mean, this, what you see in this bottle, this is going to be our flagship brand here.
Yeah.
Okay. And, the whiskey that we've got aging right now down in Bardstown, it's going to be at least 4 years old before we'll bottle it. Okay. And we're going to hang on to some and make some older renditions as well.
Yeah.
I mentioned we just laid down 600 barrels in March, and tell you a little bit something that makes it a little bit different. The first two batches, I actually, again, part of my responsibility when they make our whiskey, I go down to Bardstown Bourbon Company, and I said, man, gave them the mash bill. I give them all the work instructions as far as the time and temperatures for cooking the mash and the different grains, specifications for fermentation and distillation, and then I likewise pick the barrels. So in my consulting services, I work with a company, one of my early clients, a company called West Virginia Great Barrel Company. They just started making barrels this past February. It took them a while to get going. I actually went out there to West Virginia and helped them start up their stave mill, where they're cutting, the white oak logs and the staves and heading and air drying them before they actually make barrels. But the cooperage actually got up and running in February. Well, a year ago,
that's perfect timing, actually, with all the things going on.
Yeah.
Right. Perfect.
So a year ago, this past May, I went out there and I personally went through their log yard and I selected all the logs that we were going to use to make the next 600 barrels of whiskey. Wow. Again, with my years of experience in the cooperage, I selected all very tight grain oak. The annual growth rings were at least 10 annual growth rings per inch. They average probably closer to 12 to 15. So, and what you do when you get those tight annual.
Greg, I'm sorry. On that note, just because I'm interested in this, what is like an average? You said that's tight as far as the rings. So like, what is, what's just not tight? What is something that you you looked at the log and you're like, yeah, no, not that one.
Exactly. I went over, looked through 500 logs to select out enough logs to make 600 barrels.
And you're just doing comparison based on if they had wider rings, you're just
wider rings. I called it out.
Okay.
Now, the beauty of West Virginia being in the Appalachian, because all this white oak came out of the Appalachian Mountains, okay? And you got to remember, on the north side of a mountain, it's not getting the sunlight that the south side does. So it's going to naturally grow slower, All right. But the Appalachian Mountains is such rough and rocky soil that the white oak grows slow anyhow. And so you get a much higher percentage of tight grain oak in that region. And I found that out because when I worked at Brown Forman and manager Cooperage, we bought stays and heading from all over the country that has white oak, from Minnesota down to Arkansas, all the way over to the Carolinas and everywhere in between. And in Minnesota, in the Prairie du Chien area up in Wisconsin, being colder climate, they have a lot of slow, tight grain oak. And in the West Virginia area, down in the Appalachian Mountains, likewise, very tight grain oak. So what the importance of that is you get a density and a high concentration of the chemical composition that's going to give you the most flavor in your whiskey. You got cellulose, hemicellulose, and lignin. They're the three primary components in that white oak. Okay. And the hemicellulose is where your wood sugars are. They're polysaccharides. So that when you build a barrel and before you char it, you toast it. It's just like taking sugar in a spoon and holding it over a Bunsen burner. What's it do? It starts melting and caramelizing on you.
That's right.
Well, that's where you're getting the caramel flavors in the whiskey. Same thing with the lignin. When you heat up that lignin in the toasting process, you're converting that lignin into vanillin, and that's where the vanilla flavors come from. So with this tight grain oak, you've got such a high density and high concentration of all those flavors that you convert into these fabulous flavors they're going to impart. Remember earlier I said 60 to 70% of the flavor in a barrel of whiskey comes, or in a bottle of whiskey comes from the barrel.
Yeah,
so that's what you're doing. That's the key elements in flavoring a great whiskey. So anyhow, I selected the logs. I was there to oversee the production of the barrels. And then, of course, I went to Bardstown. We made the bourbon and put it in there. So March of, it'll be March of 2024 at least. Sometime in the second half of March or 2024 is when we'll actually start bottling some of that bourbon. So I'm very excited and looking forward to that.
Do you have any same kind of a hands-on approach with the grains that you're using for that at all?
No, I pretty much rely. The guys at Bardstown Bourbon Company are sourcing some fabulous grains.
Okay,
I think you'll find that actually in this rye. Rye can get pretty funky on you. And let's segue right into the rye. Why don't we?
Let's take a.
So the rye is give you the mash bill. This is actually I can be transparent on this one. This was actually produced through our collaboration with Bardstown Bourbon Company.
Okay,
came from Bardstown Bourbon Company, and it's a 95% rye, 5% malted barley. So very high rye. I
would say 95% is pretty high. Yeah.
Yeah. I for years was not a big rye fan. And even when I was at Wild Turkey, Wild Turkey makes a rye and it was like, I don't know, 35 or 36% corn.
Yeah.
And so it just seemed like a harsher whiskey to me. But now that some of these 95% ryes have come out, I mean, it's a totally different category altogether. It's so good. Now, if you know that, tell me, what are you smelling out of this?
I can almost smell the spice already.
I was gonna say it's very floral on the nose for me.
Yeah,
it's got a bit of a punch to
spice,
it,
but it's a very high floral note to it.
Yeah, I get a lot of spice.
But I can almost smell a little bit of vanilla.
I wish I could pick up those smells and put them in. I never can, but
yeah, Jonathan, that's the beauty of it. There's no right or wrong answer in these tastes. Everybody has their own smell and own taste, and so I get amazed sometimes some of the tastings I do, some of the flavors and smells that people are getting, because I don't get it, but
Well, we always have that joke too, since we're more obviously this is called Bourbon and BS podcast, but I mean a lot of our background is in the cigars, and it's just like whiskeys when you read the blogs and stuff like that where people are listing off well in this order I smell or I taste these 6 things in this order, and you're like, I don't even know what half of those things would even taste like, let alone in a
like
in a
the
whiskey.
One I read
Jesus.
to you yesterday.
Yeah,
we had a positive review of one of our cigars where they said it had hints of rotten strawberries,
and that was a positive review.
It was a positive review.
Yeah, that makes no sense.
Well, they must like rotten strawberries or very ripe strawberries, I guess.
How many rotten strawberries do you have to eat, first of all, to pick that out in a lineup, let alone say that that's a good thing? And how rotten are these? Like, never mind.
They're just getting a little mold on them, or they're all black. Like, what's going on?
So yeah, this is
That's
obviously
a nice one. It's
completely different.
It is very
so
different.
we definitely got the 2 different ones, which
glad,
is good.
I'm glad we determined that before we poured these again.
It definitely has like a coats your whole mouth.
Yeah,
like
it's more oily
than
the bourbon. I noticed
but
that.
I mean, compared to some other ryes, I mean, I will say that it doesn't have as much spice.
No.
That I was expecting. Yeah. It's very smooth. What's the proof of this one?
90.
This is 90 proof as well.
This is 90 as well. Man, it's very, very enjoyable. I mean, it really is. It's not what I was expecting by any means. I got to be honest.
As I mentioned, John, I don't smoke a lot of cigars during the year, but when I do, I enjoy it with a good whiskey. And I paired it with some rye here about a week ago, and oh my gosh, it really paired well.
I complimented
this
very,
rye
very well.
goes way better with the cigar than the bourbon did.
I think it
the
would,
specific cigar too. Yeah.
It was because sometimes when I'm doing a tasting, like sometimes it's what's the first flavor note that jumps out at me? Like what's the first thing that pops in my head? Because my body and my brain are sitting there going, I know this flavor, it tastes like this.
Yeah.
And sometimes you just have to run with that.
Yeah.
And when I took my first sip of this rye, it's gonna sound weird.
Probably.
It's like kind of like a sweet tart.
I've heard that before. Nah.
Wow.
You've heard that? What flavor sweet tart?
Yeah. Which color?
Yes.
You know, I did a podcast here recently. A lot of people said dill pickles. You know, I'm picking up dill pickles on there, and I'm thinking, well, yeah, there's a little bit of, I don't know, through the spices, I guess. You know, you get some of that vinegary texture.
I'm not getting dill. I got to be honest. I'm not getting dill.
So I don't either particularly, but some people, you know, everybody has a different nose and different palate. So,
when you went to the cooperage in West Virginia, first off, where is it located in West Virginia?
White Sulphur Springs.
Okay.
So you know where the Greenbrier is, right?
Yes, sir. So I have accounts out there. So when you went out there and you're looking at the difference in the rings, did they think you were crazy? I mean, were they like, God, this is intense?
Well, no, you got to remember they hired me as a consultant, being the expert.
They were, yeah.
when you have the resume that he does.
Oh yeah.
You just shut up and listen.
And that being said, do you ever go out to these places like that and just do something just to fuck with them? You know what I mean? Like you're looking at the rings or whatever, and then you're like, you have to like turn it to like, you
lick
know,
the wood.
Lick the wood, or like, you know, like you like kind of like, hey, will you lift that and angle it about 23 degrees just so I can see it? Wait, what time is it? And you like just start like completely messing with these guys, and they're like, I wonder what he's looking at. I just can't figure it out. And you're like, yeah,
take like a big.
You obviously haven't been in the industry as long as I have, or else you'd understand. Have you ever messed with anyone like that?
I can honestly say I have not. No,
when you do, I want to hear about it.
Yes.
Like sit there and take a Bic lighter.
Because I absolutely would do that.
Well, you got to remember these people, especially out in the stave mill, they'd never worked in that environment or in a stave mill, and so I spent actually a week out there. Let's see, they started the stave mill. When was it? In March, actually end of February of 2019. And so I was out there the first week of March, basically training people, teaching them how to quarter saw white oak logs.
Wow.
And the staves and heading, how to edge them up, you know, what defects to look for, what to cut off and what have you, and then save wood without, you know, wasting a lot of money, because white oak's not cheap. It's very expensive wood. And so you got to be careful of your yields that you're getting out of the log as well. So, but anyhow, and then I went back the first week of April the next month and did some retraining, and it was interesting to see how the learning curve, you know, evolved, and they're doing a good job out there now. So
I love that you're giving jobs, you know, to the West Virginia people. They need it right now, and good folks out there, man. I love traveling out there and really enjoy the people out there.
Yeah, that whole area, it's interesting. This whole the West Virginia Gregg Cooperage, actually, Gregg Barrel Company, they actually their original mission was just that, to create jobs for that economically depressed area, and they're doing a great job of it.
Nice. Yeah, it's so cool that, you know, you've been in every facet of the industry, and you've been at so many, you know, different places and seen different ways of doing things. I mean, it's got to be fun. It's a wealth of knowledge that you can't get by any education other than just doing it. I mean, it's
you're right. I've been very blessed, very fortunate, and have no regrets in my career whatsoever as far as the track I took, and it wasn't easy. And like I said, some you have some good days and some rough days, but
it's going to work.
At the end of the time period, it's I'm very thankful and grateful. It's been awfully good to me and my family, and got my kids through school. And so,
Good.
Yeah.
How many glasses of bourbon or whiskey do you drink a day?
Yeah, it depends on the day, I guess, and how.
Great answer, by the way.
No, I not always. I mean, I don't drink it every day, but most days out of the week, I'll have a glass for sure.
There you go.
So we can't get this in Ohio. What do these two bottles normally run? The bourbon and the rye. What do they? What's the?
Yeah. So tell you a little bit about the package. This is actually this bottle right here that you're seeing. It is a replica of the pre-prohibition bottle of the chicken cock was actually bottled in. The bourbon, the chicken cock Kentucky straight bourbon, suggested retail price on it is $60. Okay. I've seen it in the 50s. I've seen it in the 80s. So it just depends on the market. The chicken cock rye, which is in the same style bottle, only it's got a greener label. I don't know if you can tell the difference in color. In
a little bit, yeah, a little bit.
It suggested retail prices at $70. So,
okay. So it's not inexpensive, but it's not ungodly.
No, it's not bottom shelf by any means. And again, it's when you're sourcing whiskey, that's one of the difficulties. Number one, it's difficult to find good aged whiskey. Number two, if you can find it, it's difficult to afford it because it's usually extremely expensive. And if you can't afford it, then your pricing is going to be fairly high in order to make a profit out of it.
Well, when you're sourcing it, you got to be able to have a source that has enough of it to be able to sustain you while your own stuff is
exactly. And so that's an element. We do a lot of limited time offers as well. We just came out with a product called Righteous Blonde.
Okay.
It's chicken cock Righteous Blonde, and it was a collaboration we did with Goodwood Brewing Company. Don't know if you're familiar with Goodwood.
Yeah, I am.
Yeah, they have in Louisville and Frankfurt and a couple other places. But good people, and they make some great beer. But this is our second collaboration where I gave them 6 empty barrels from our Kentucky straight bourbon, and they aged a blonde ale in those barrels.
Oh, nice.
8 weeks later, when the beer was done, they dumped the beer out and processed it. I got the barrels back and I put rye whiskey back into those barrels. And it was in there about 5 months where I felt it had fully saturated the flavor it was going to.
Yeah.
And excellent product. Very unique. I mean, you can taste the malted barley from the beer. It's got some sweeter, different flavors in that. But it's done well. Very limited edition. We only were able to bottle, 1,427 bottles total. So out of the 30 markets we're selling in, not many states got made. Well, Indiana and Kentucky both got the biggest allocations, and those 2 states only got 150 bottles each. So,
wow. So there's not a lot left out there, I would imagine.
Yeah, so we're doing a lot of limited time offers. We have another one coming up, as I mentioned. We're going to bottle in the middle of October some source whiskey that we discovered, and it's to me it's like treasure hunting. You're going out there and you're trying this whiskey. Some passes the bill, some doesn't. And so when you find, good whiskey that you feel, fits your profile that you're trying to establish for quality, it's what we strive for. So when you're out there treasure hunting, I think I finally found I won't say it's a holy grail, but it's a heck of a gem. We're going to be bottling this in mid-October. It's going to be chicken cock 15-year-old barrel proof bourbon.
Oh,
it is absolutely fantastic.
I like the sound of that.
Road trip.
You got people in the garage happy about that.
Yeah,
it's likes anything barrel proof.
Well, again, it's going to be very limited edition.
Right.
So it's going to be highly sought after. The issue is a price point. I believe currently the suggested retail is going to be somewhere around $300 a bottle. So,
wow.
Yeah. But it is absolutely some of the best bourbon I've ever poured past my lips.
Do we want to go threes on a bottle?
Well, I'll talk to Aaron. When's this?
You should seriously talk to him.
We can get you back on at least for a little cameo, and we'll do you can send just one of these next time if that's all you can sneak us or whatever. But that'd be great to try. That sounds amazing. It really does.
Yeah.
And what else? I mean, what else can you tell us? Is there anything else? I don't want to keep you all night. Obviously, we're going to touch on the cigar. You are a wealth of knowledge. We can talk to you all night long, and we can just, forego talking about the cigar. But Jonathan's here too, so
yeah, I'd like to get a little plug in later.
We already said what we're smoking.
Hey, he did bring a cigar and bottle, so
So is there a plan? So for the states that don't have chicken cock products, is there a plan to get into Ohio? I know Ohio's tough. You said Pennsylvania's tough, but I mean, nationwide, I mean, is there a plan prior to, bottling your guys' own juice that you're going to get into other states? Is that in the business model right now? Or are we just basically, this is where you're at the moment, given your certain thing?
It's absolutely in the business model to
Okay.
be nationwide and international. Again, this is a very small company, and they rely heavily on certain investors to kind of pay the money. And you got to remember, in the whiskey industry especially, you got to be patient because the cash flow, and that's why we're sourcing. A lot of people say, well, you source your whiskey, you don't make it. Well, we do make our whiskey, but in order to afford the opportunity to make it and age it, you got to have cash flow. And, and the best business model that companies will use, and I can name you probably 100 different brands and companies that have sourced and are still sourcing that a lot of people don't know about. But that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to create that cash flow to keep the ball rolling. But yeah, we will be in all 50 states, hopefully. Don't know the time frame, but it's in the business plan for sure.
That's fantastic to hear. You guys have any other questions?
Yeah, are you going to be doing some kind of like once everything clears up, you're going to be doing some tastings live in some places in Kentucky and doing the road trip?
I hope to, yeah. Again, being a small company, I don't do a lot of traveling. I've got some plans end of October to go down to South Carolina to a couple of different markets, do a whiskey dinner and some tastings and bottle signing events, that type of thing.
There's a lot of cocks down there, so yeah, you got a lot.
There you go, Gamecocks. There you go.
No, the Gamecocks.
No, I got
it.
It
Sells.
I'm
sure it's popular there already.
All right.
Yeah. But now that we're in Indiana, it's my hometown. I did a tasting here a few weeks ago, actually, at a liquor store downtown New Albany. So, and I'd love to do one up in Knobs with the office. Again, haven't had a chance to stop by there yet, but I've heard a lot of great things and know several people that actually frequent that place quite a bit. So
we're going to work on that.
I think the Burn Lounge needs to get it in.
Yeah, so we have a contact, Jake Sanders, who's the humidor manager at Burn by Rocky Patel in Indianapolis. He used to be a part of the podcast, and so yeah, he would be one. I don't know if they carry it already, but we got to get you guys involved there too.
For sure. Yeah, you got my email address and that, Steve.
Yeah.
So yeah, just
I will do that. Yeah, I will absolutely do that. You want to stick around while we talk about the cigar? Or you want to sign off?
Yeah, I'd love to hear what you're doing if you don't mind. And then
absolutely.
If you have any other questions, you can pull me back in and whatever. But yeah, I would love to if you don't mind.
No, we'll just keep you on the screen. You can ask questions if that's all right, if you want to.
Sure.
Yeah. So tonight we are smoking along with the chicken cock products is the Diesel. And this is the Esteli Puro.
Right.
So Diesel is a brand, and I'll let Jonathan kind of take over a little bit, but Diesel is a brand that was created by AJ Fernandez, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, in collaboration.
So this was a brand that you would find typically online in a lot of the like Cigars International and some of the other websites. And then not too long ago, you branched out, started introducing some of the Diesel products, new ones.
So yeah, 2017 we came out with Diesel Grind.
That went into the brick and mortar.
First brick and mortar offering. Since then, we've done the Diesel Whiskey Row. I was talking about it pre-podcast. We did that with Rabbit Hole Distillery. And then we did the Sherry Cask. So we aged both of those and part of the tobacco and bourbon barrels. And they've both been really popular. Some of our most highly rated cigars we've had in the last few years have come out of Diesel.
And they really just had a hint of it, right? I mean, it wasn't like a flavored cigar, which I think a lot of people originally thought, when they came out, you had a little bit of like a flavored essence to it, but it really was. It was just a barely, had the hint of it from the aging process.
And I think what Justin Andrews, the blender, is trying to do is make AJ do things he's never done and says he would have never done. So the bourbon barrel aging, the binder of the tobacco in there was something he said, he never had any interest in. And we got him to do it. And then he fell in love with the project. And for you, Greg, I mean, AJ Fernandez is known as the guy when it comes to blending some of the tobacco he does. I mean, he's
the hot hand right now.
Yeah, he's a guy that a lot of people work with. He actually started by making cigars for General Cigar through our catalogs and doing bundles. And so we kind of, work together. We've worked with him for a long time. Nice. So it's worked out really well, him getting so hot now. So this cigar is Diesel Esteli Puro. So the idea behind it, it's again something AJ had never done before. It's all Nicaraguan Esteli Habano. So it's all grown in the same region, wrapper, binder, filler.
So it's not just a clever name, which is nice.
Yes, it's not just the name.
You can literally, Greg, it's funny. And anyone else out there, that's unfamiliar with it, we joke about the fact that it is an actual Puro, which means it's all from the same region. There's been so many cigars out there that they'll call it, say they would have called it a Diesel Nicaragua, and you're like, oh, cool. And it's like, what's the wrapper? And they're like, oh, it's a Dominican Republic,
or Ecuadorian.
Yeah, it's an Ecuadorian or something like that. And it's like one leaf in the filler is Nicaraguan. You're like, oh, so it's pure marketing. And they're like, well, this one actually is true to its name, which is kind of nice to see because there is a little bit of that transparency you were talking about, obviously, with your line of work.
Yeah, and so it's 3 different farms basically in Esteli. The wrapper, and I'm reading this, sorry, it's from the La Lilia farm. So it was named for AJ Fernandez's grandmother. It's a famous farm where he does a lot of his tobacco. The binder from the San Jose farm, and the filler, it says from several different of Fernandez's plots across Esteli, including the San Lotano farm. So it's all AJ's farms in Esteli. All the tobacco comes from there. The thing that gets me about the cigar, and I love it, I've been unabashed for my love for it. It's got a lot of complexity to all be from Esteli, and I think there's a lot of depth to it. There's a lot of complexity. It's really nice flavor. For those of you interested, it's in that going to be in that $8 to $9 price point. Robusto, Toro, Gigante, and
3 sizes total.
Yeah, 3 sizes total.
Okay,
and yeah, it's it's been one of the rare cigars where I drop it off and guys call me a day or 2 later and go, "Damn, I tried it. Wow!" And guys don't usually take the time to do that, so that's been a really good feedback. And it just started shipping this week, and we have sold a lot of it. And for what we're going through right now, and for people to bring in a new product right now, and it's been really cool.
Did you say it's all Habano?
Yeah.
Wow. All right. So
Yeah.
it's not just all Nicaraguan. It's not just all from Esteli. It's all Habano.
Correct. Yeah.
okay.
So it is Puro in truest sense.
Yes. Yeah.
Greg, do you have a question?
Actually, I did. Can I acquire this at the office, Jonathan?
You will be able to soon. So he's tried it. He'll be bringing it in very soon. So I would imagine in the next week or 2.
Well, you intrigued my taste buds, so yeah, I just check it out.
This.
Yeah, and he's carrying a lot of our different lines. I don't know. I work for General Cigar Company, so we do Macanudo, Punch, Partagas, Cohiba, CAO, La Gloria Cubana, Hoyo, Diesel.
Is that all of them?
Most of them, Bolivar. So we have a lot of brands. We're a big manufacturer. I work directly for the manufacturer,
Cool.
and so we have factories in Nicaragua, Honduras, and Dominican Republic.
And Freddie Bird's out there. He's asking if we can show on camera. Freddie, we'll be posting pictures as well. So just check it out on either the Bourbon and BS community page or on the podcast, Instagram or Facebook, and we'll get pictures of the cigar out there for you so you guys know what to look for. It's a black band. It's cool marketing. Diesel has always got this like cool look to it, but it's a black with a silver
It's got
foil.
that cedar foot.
Yep, it's got a cedar foot on it. He's not gonna be able to see that.
Okay.
I mean, I got to be honest. He's
Zoom
not gonna be
in.
able to see
No.
that. I don't know why. I mean, I can't see it. It's perfect. Thank
There
you.
you go.
Thank you, Vanna.
Yeah.
But we'll get a picture out there. I gotta say, the biggest thing with this cigar, though, is, and I was smoking one. Luckily, Jonathan stopped by the shop earlier today, and he was generous enough to give me one to smoke. What really blew me away about this one and is the retrohale, which kind of ruined it. So for those that don't retrohale, and Greg, do you know what retrohaling is? No. So retrohaling is basically when you're going to push. You don't inhale, but you push the smoke from your mouth into the nasal cavity and push some of that smoke out, and that kind of lights up. It's kind of when you take a sip out of Glencairn, or like even with wine, a lot of times you kind of inhale as you're drinking. It kind of opens up everything. That's going to be something that this one really kind of blew me away. But then when I switched it to maybe the people that don't retrohale, they don't get as much from this blend.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I could see that. I mean, you get so much out of the retrohale. I mean, you pick up so many more flavors. It's a powerful cigar on the retro hell. But I mean, I was talking to Justin.
Still got good flavor. Don't get me wrong. It's got good flavor without, but
I was talking to Justin yesterday, who blended this with AJ, and he said AJ kept coming to him, and they went back and forth for months over this cigar, and they kept working on it. And AJ is known for very strong cigars, spicy, strong cigars, and so he got this one down to a point where it's not really that, but on the retro hell, you still get those notes, and you still can tell it's an AJ cigar.
Oh, for sure.
And it's going to give the Diesel fans what they want, but I think it's going to branch out into other groups of people to try it. And
I think it's going to be good for anyone who likes anything from AJ or people that like Nicaraguan cigars.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot going on there, and AJ Fernandez really is the hot hand, which is kind of cool to see. And you guys are using him for a lot of projects, which is nice. Right. There are other companies that are using him. He's got his own line. He is just blowing it out of the water with everything. And it's shocking to me is how many different blends that he has released under your portfolio, General Cigars. Can I get some of that?
Absolutely.
We were talking about this, Russell, so I guess got to try it. Yeah. But yeah, just the fact that he's able to come out with that many different flavor profiles with a lot of, I mean, you think it's like, oh, this is a lot of the same tobacco, but even in this, even though it's going to be all Habano, it's all Esteli grown, it's from 3 different farms at least.
At least, yeah.
At least. So it's just, I mean, it makes sense. You just really have to dive into that part of it.
And AJ's a farmer. That's the cool thing about him. He is a farmer first and foremost before he is anything. He's out there every day on his tractor. Like, I mean, he's old school. He's a farmer. That's what he loves. And so he knows his fields, he knows his farms, and I can't say enough about it. I love his cigars that he does under his brand.
Yeah,
I love some of the stuff he's done with Altadis. I always try it if it comes out, and we're really lucky to have the relationship we have with him.
Well, it's kind of like with Gregg here, the wealth of knowledge that AJ has, because he's done everything.
I'm pretty sure he's 3 generations in too.
Yes, I mean, because AJ is one of those guys, because I know he did it for another guy who had like his own cigar made private label for him. The guy met AJ, handed him one of his cigars, and was like, "Yeah, tell me what you think." AJ just pulls out a pocket knife, cuts the cigar open, and just from looking at the tobacco inside the cigar, he was able to tell what type of tobacco it was and from what country or even region some of those tobaccos were coming from. He would take a little bit of like the filler or the binder, and just light it a little bit, and then just smell the smoke coming off. So he's not even smoking the cigar; he's just lighting the tobacco and smelling the aroma coming off of it. And he was able to dissect that entire cigar.
It's like a guy that, shows up and starts looking at logs. You know what I mean? Like it's
exactly.
He was probably messing with them too.
Yeah.
Well, Gregg, what kind of cigars do you typically enjoy?
It just depends on what I've got available. When I worked at Wild Turkey, I had a humidor. I actually kept a humidor in my office, and I actually humidified those cigars with some 8-year-old Wild Turkey bourbon. I made sure that I kept it full, and it I tell you what, it gave it a great flavor. I always thought it was.
Do you prefer
fantastic.
More like on the mild side, medium, full? What do you usually?
Typically not overly, aggressive on the flavor, but I like something that you smoked it as well.
Right.
I prefer a Maduro wrapper typically, but again that varies.
I think this would be something that you would like, because it's not. I don't think this is a full body cigar. It's full flavor, but it's not a full body cigar. It doesn't really hit you, but it's got.
Yeah, what do you classify this as? Medium full? I mean, you guys
medium full is what it says on the
Yeah, it's very smooth. It's got a nice flavor on the palate, but you're right, Steve. The retrohale is where you really pick up that spice.
Yeah, the retro really lights it up.
It's not overpowering. Like, I was surprised how smooth, but yet potent that flavor was through the retrohale. Like, it's not faint. It's not overpowering like, say, the Rubito, BS Silver Rubito.
Yeah.
It's not quite that strong, but it's definitely there. But there's just a smooth texture to the smoke.
What? Bless you.
Excuse me.
You're good, right? You're healthy.
Oh yeah.
Oh, cool. Thanks for turning towards
Healthy
me.
is a very loose term.
Turn towards Nate next time that happens.
Yeah, I'm expendable.
Exactly. Jeez. No, it's kind of it's interesting. It's kind of in a sense like bourbon sometimes is I think that you have something, you see the proof on it, you're like, ooh, that's gonna be real hot. And it's purely based on what you see on the bottle. And then you pour it, you take a sip of it, and you're like, oh, I'm probably gonna need to add water to it. You don't always need to.
Yeah.
I feel like once you break that 100 proof mark, you don't always need to. Sometimes you're able to, and Greg, I mean, you're able to get this product sometimes that's going to be closer to barrel proof or even barrel proof. That I've had plenty of them that you really do need to add water. I mean, you do need to cut it just a little bit, just a drop or two, just to really kind of explode the flavors and everything like that, or to take down the heat just a little bit because it's overpowering. But there's others that are in that 110, 115 range that I have taken a couple sips of, and I'm like, that's actually, are you sure that's right? I mean, that's really easy drinking.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're saying. I kind of gave you how I like to address that type of situation. We did one of my first involvements with Grain and Barrel Spirits and Chicken Cock was they came out with 160 in 2016. They came out with an 8-year-old source whiskey, of course, came from MGP, actually, out of Lawrenceburg, Indiana. I can tell you that. Tried to be transparent. But it was 8-year-old single barrel, fabulous bourbon, and it was called the 160th anniversary bottle. So, 1856 to 2016, 150 years. And so they did about 28 single barrels. And I think they had a total of 40 barrels. And so as it was winding down again, I just got involved with the company. I asked the founder, I said, let me do something special because, I like single barrels, but my biggest rub with single barrels is they can be so inconsistent from barrel to barrel to barrel. And so I asked Marty, I said, let me play around with this and do something different. So I did the sensory analysis on those 12 barrels, each barrel, and I proofed. And they range somewhere between 108 to 115 proof out of the barrel. And so that's what I did. I started knocking them down a proof point at a time until I got to the point where I felt, boom, that alcohol burn subsided. And that's when the caramel and vanilla and other great notes overtook the profile. And just to your point, Steve, that's exactly what I try to do. All bourbon's different. So, and then I did my sensory analysis. I took barrels that were dominant in certain characteristics and paired them up with ones that were less dominant in those characteristics, but maybe had some more complementary characteristics. And so I married up. So out of those 12 barrels, I made 6 batches. And again, it was called Chicken Cock 10-year-old double barrel batch.
I saw pictures of that when I was looking into you guys.
Yeah, that was in our Starburst bottle. Actually, here's a picture. I don't know if you can see it. That's the Righteous Blend. It was in that bottle, the Starburst with the old jigger cap on top.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool.
I like that.
And that's another replica of a pre-prohibition bottle of Chicken Cock. But, so anyhow, believe it or not, and I got some consistency. 6 batches were very consistent. And the proof was 104 proof. Okay. When you paired it up and people did tastings, they thought it was so much smoother, less of a bite than the 90 proof.
That's I think it's interesting. I think it speaks volumes too, like what your process is. It doesn't always have to be the proof thing. Right. I get a lot of people saying that, when there's like, oh, it's 114 or something like that. You're like, well, you're definitely going to need to cut it with a little bit of water. I'm like, well, hang on, let me try it the way it is right now.
Try it the way they meant it to be tried.
Yeah. So Dustin, actually, who's in the garage, he said that you sound exactly like Booker No with his single barrel thoughts. That's good. That's good company right there.
A friend of mine as well. Booker. One of my fondest memories of Booker was it was a weekend after 9/11. Believe it or not, I was on the board of directors of the Kentucky Distillers Association, and the Bourbon Festival, the Kentucky Bourbon Festival, was going to happen that following week. And of course, with 9/11, a lot of the flights were all canceled. A lot of people couldn't get in town, and so everybody's plans changed. And Jimmy Russell and I were walking downtown where they set up the booths every year, and ran into Booker and Fred. And Booker says, "What are you guys doing tomorrow night?" And I said, our plans got canceled, Booker. We had a dinner plan, but folks couldn't make it in town. So
naturally,
well, why don't you come on over to the house? He said, we're just going to have a cookout in the backyard there. And he said, bring your wives and we'll. So
that's a cookout that a lot of people would want to be at.
Yeah.
And so as we walked down Booker's driveway, he had his backyard fenced in with a wooden fence. they were doing a candle prayer vigil for the victims of 9/11. So we
Nice.
stood there until the prayer was over, and then they finished. We opened the gate and walked in, and Jimmy and I are walking in, and all of a sudden I hear this gravelly voice, "Gregg, Jimmy, come on up here," and looked up the steps in the Booker's kitchen, and he's in the kitchen. Said, "Come on in here." So our wives go in the backyard, and Jimmy and I go in, sit down at the kitchen table with Booker and John Boswell, who owned Independent Stave Company, the largest barrel company in the world, where Team gets most of their barrels, was there as well. And so the four of us sat there at Booker's table and tasting different bourbons that Booker was trying and people had sent him and so forth.
Wow.
But that's one of those moments you just turn into a sponge and you soak up everything you can, because Booker and Jimmy are sitting there sharing stories, and it's just it was definitely a memorable. But Booker was a dear friend of mine, and I have a lot of respect and just like Jimmy. So
that is a table of royalty. That is whiskey royalty right there.
And you didn't get invited to it on accident, so
you just have to show up with all of them, and you're like, "Hey guys, what's going on?"
I'm saying he didn't get invited on accident.
No, I know he didn't get.
They wanted his opinion on those whiskeys too. I mean, it's just it's really neat, and I've heard the stories about the great cigar makers out there, and they get together and they help each other, they taste each other's cigars and offer opinions, and they probably drink more bourbon than you do at those things.
Yeah, the closest cigar story I've talked about it. A couple of years ago, I was fortunate enough to go down to Cuba, and through the connections and everything, we happened to go out to the farms in Pino del Rio. And one of the farms, the first one we actually stopped by just so our friend Mark could say hi to Don Carlos Robaina, which is one of the major farming families down there in Cuba. And so we went in there, and they're like, "Oh, come on back. Like, we're not doing any tours today, but come on back and, sit down. We'll, just chat for a little bit." And we're like, "All right, yeah, that's cool." So I'm just sitting there in these rocking chairs that I've seen on documentaries so far. So when I see him now, and I'm like, "Well, I was there." And so Don Carlos sits down, and Ivan, who's kind of the translator and also the tour guide, right-hand man type of guy. And then Hirochi, who is the active person in charge of everything. He's a 5th generation Cuban farmer, and he's the one that Don Alejandro had given basically the reins to the farm and all the production and everything like that. So then he shows up, and he's like, "Oh, you guys want some coffee?" So next thing you know, we're about 2.5, 3 hours later. We're smoking a cigar, having a beer with Hirochi Robaina, his dad Don Carlos, sitting next to the sculpture of Don Alejandro, and just talking. And they're asking us questions about how cigars are and the humidors in Ohio and all this stuff. And it's like, "Oh, I can't wait to come up and meet you guys up there and all this stuff." And I remember walking away from that, and I'm just like, did that really just happen? Like, holy shit. Because like, I wish it was like one of those things that there was someone filming at the time, like my own personal documentary. Because when I'm telling these stories, it pales in comparison. You hear something like your story, and it's like, I would love to be that fly on the wall just to hear that conversation and how you guys would sit around talking about some of these different pours that you're going through. I mean, I think that would be absolutely fascinating to just even like read a transcript, like be like, is someone taking minutes here? Because I want to read this. This is something that you could put in a small story, and just like, this is a couple hours with boom, 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 boom. And you're like, oh, Jesus.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Absolutely amazing. All right. So this is the time of the program. And I know you're not smoking the cigar here, Gregg, but this is when we do the end of part 1, where we're going to rate out of 10 the whiskey, and we can do both. We can do the bourbon and the rye. Rate out of 10 being the best, rate the cigar, and then rate the pairing. So who do I want to put on the spot tonight?
I'll go.
All right, Nate, you're on the spot. So let's start with the whiskeys. So out of 10, and then Gregg, you'll have your chance as well. I'd love to hear your rating on these 2 whiskeys. I don't know if you ever get asked that.
I'll leave that up to the other experts. So,
all right, Nate, go ahead with your ratings.
For the bourbon, I'm going to give the bourbon a 9.
Okay.
Very smooth, a lot of flavor. Really enjoyed the complexity of it. Was not expecting it to be that smooth. And even before I knew what the proof was, just looking at it in the sample bottles that we had, and when I poured it in the glass, I was so surprised and taken back with just how good that was. For the rye, if I was gonna just compare it to ryes, not just all whiskeys, but if I was gonna put that rye compared to other ryes, I'm giving the Chicken Cock Rye a 10.
Wow.
That is without a doubt the best rye that I've had, and I would gladly pay $75 for that.
That is cool.
Rye.
That's cool to hear.
Cigar, I'm gonna give the cigar a 9. It's really good. I was expecting something a little fuller.
I like that. 9 quote Nate Hale, really good.
I was
Raven review.
We're on a 20-point scale here, by the way.
It's 10. It's 10.
No, when Jonathan was talking about it before the podcast and mentioned that it's all Nicaraguan and it's all from Esteli.
Yeah.
I was expecting something stronger, something bolder, something a lot heavier on the palate, and it wasn't. But that's not a negative because it wasn't so strong and overwhelming. You could really taste some of the flavors in the cigar.
Okay.
Pairing the cigar with the bourbon, I give that pairing an 8. Pairing the cigar with the rye, I give that pairing a 9.
Got it.
The cigar went better with the rye than it did with the bourbon. Because
I'm with you on that.
Some of the floral notes, the spice characteristic, they complemented and paired well together without either one being overpowering.
Yeah. It's funny. Avi's out there, one of our top fans. He says the Russian judge got paid again because there was a few weeks back that Nate was not so kind on a rating. And I called him out and I said,
no, it was higher than that.
You're like the 80s Russian judge in the Olympics right now. You know what I mean? So now he's got this stigma around him. So no, there was no payment here there, Avi, but definitely a positive review. How about you, Jonathan?
Yeah, I am along the lines, of Nate a lot. I would say the bourbon, cost always comes into play for me with the price point.
With you.
At that price point, I would give that bourbon an 8. I mean, I think it's fantastic. That's a little outside of what I normally spend on bourbon and rye, just because I'm cheap. But I think I think it was fantastic. It's so drinkable, very, very tasty. I give the rye a 9. I'm there. I like that rye a lot. Probably be a 10 at $50. And
I can see that. I mean, I get it.
But I thought it was great, and I understand. I understand the economics. I don't understand the economics, but I believe the economics that you said.
I followed along with.
I paid $75 for a bottle of rye, and the Chicken Cock Rye was so much better.
Yeah. And so and I thought it was fantastic. And the cigar. I mean, I send out emails whenever we have a new cigar, and this is the first cigar I ever sent the email and said, guys, this thing's really, really good. It fits everything I look for in a cigar. I'll give the cigar a 9.5.
Oh, bringing it out decimal. All right.
Because it's fantastic to me, and I've really enjoyed it, and good price point and everything. And the pairing, I'd say 9 for the bourbon and 10 for the rye, because I just thought it hit really well with the rye. I'd probably go 8 for the bourbon, because I don't think it paired as well, as another cigar might have paired with that bourbon.
Yeah.
So I'll give it an 8 for the bourbon and a 10 for the rye. I would drink that rye and smoke that cigar anytime.
Now, I know General's portfolio is vast. Is there a cigar in the General portfolio that you think would have paired better? Like, what was
with the bourbon?
With the bourbon, like, what do you?
I would probably go with like old school, like an Excalibur Cameroon, something with a little more sweetness to it. That's where I would have gone with it. I like any Cameroon basically that we do. I would have gone with that because I'm a huge Cameroon fan.
Me too.
I am outnumbered at the table.
Yeah.
None of your ratings have any basis with me any longer. Greg, how about for you with the bourbon and the rye? What's your rating out of 10?
Again, I'm going to be biased, so I don't know that it's fair to give a rating in that, but I think the ratings that you guys gave were totally fair.
Fair. That's a good point.
Okay.
It's one of those things that, you try to do the best with what you've got to work with.
Yeah.
And so when you're sourcing bourbon, as I mentioned earlier, it's difficult finding good quality bourbon. There's a number of bourbons that we rejected. You know, they were for sale, but yet I didn't feel it was hit the mark we were trying to achieve as far as the quality level we were trying to achieve. And that's why we blended too. I mean, the younger bourbon, which really wasn't that young, it had a harshness to it. And so, and I can tell you this because I don't have an NDA on this, but 20% of that blend was the older stuff. And I'm talking well into the double digits. Okay. So.
Nice.
Wow.
Yeah. Don't
worry. It's just amongst us.
I know. But
no one's listening anyways. This is actually just recorded between us. There's no one out there.
But again, I think those are very fair ratings, very, very,
that's fair. And I'll give mine here. Avi. So Avi was asking also, question to Gregg, what is the 5-year growth plan? More states, new lines. We kind of went into that, Avi. So listen back if you can. You can check out, just scrub back on the video, or if you want to listen to the audio. And Avi, we appreciate your support as always. But it's interesting. I'll give a quick summary. More states, more projects. You're like basically they're going to have their own product, their own juice that they're working on. So that is, I'd say you said about 5 years is where you're looking. Is that
well,
right?
the first is going to come out in 2022, probably the second half of
2022. Yeah. So 5-year plan is to continue to grow, continue to get more honed in on their own products as far as that instead of just sourcing it out there. And I'm not saying just sourcing out there as a negative, but I mean, that would be my curiosity, is talk to you, Gregg, in about a year or two, when you look back and I say, okay, we're not on camera. How are you rating the source stuff versus your baby project that you've been working on for these years, and see how it compares? You know what I mean? Is it, if you give this a 10 now or a 9 now, how does it compare to what you've been really in your vision, where you're headed?
I can tell you right now, I just sampled actually, every 6 months I'm sampling what we've got laid down aging. Okay.
Yeah.
There's really not much need to sample it any more frequent than that. But every 6 months I go in and I sample it. And I just sampled the stuff that we laid down in August and in 2018 and in February 2019, because now it's 2 years old and 18 months old, and it's progressing very nicely. I mean, it's interesting to have progress, and I can get into a whole seminar if you want to, but during the maturation process, oxygen actually gets into the barrel. And that oxygenation or oxidation process, what it does, it actually interacts with the alcohol and the acids that are created. And you talked about some of the floral and fruity notes. It creates flavors, and then during the maturation, those flavors get destroyed, and through transesterification, it gets recreated. So, I mean, it's an evolution and an evolving process and transformation throughout the entire maturation process. So it's interesting to track, and so I'm thrilled with the way they're heading. And the direction they're heading, and I think they're going to be fantastic when we're ready.
Yes, because before I give my ratings, I mean, just hearing that, I guess I've thought this quite a bit. Aging tobacco is kind of the same way, right? I mean, there's a lot. You have your own experience. You've learned from people that have a lot of experience as well.
Right.
I mean, is there when we talk about the patience, is there a turning point sometimes where you are at that, not with these necessarily, but you're at that point of, like, say, 24 months, and it's going in the wrong direction? It's something that it's not exactly what the goal is, or do you just ride the wave and try to tweak it in some aspect, or you just say, this is what we got? I think that's one of those things that people don't always put, I know we talked about the price point being what it is a lot of times when you're sourcing it, because there are, more, if you will, middlemen in the process. But I mean, when you're doing your own project, is there a time that you're 18 months, 24 months in, you're like, nope, this is not where I see this going? Is there something you can do at that point, or do you just basically roll with it and ride that wave, or do you say, nope, we got to start over?
Yeah, it just depends on the variables in your personal situation. Most cases, you got what you got, and so you're just going to have to ride that wave and
right.
Hope for the best. And again, because like I said, it's ever changing. It's always changing. Now, if you do have the flexibility, there's some certain things you can do in the warehouse. If you're using a traditional Rick style warehouse that's 6-7 stories high, you can move those barrels,
right,
and get different impacts on the maturation just through heat and humidity variations. And so, if you're down on the bottom floors, you're not going to get the rapid aging as you're going to get on the upper floors, where it's a lot hotter and less humid.
So
and
that's
there's
turn,
certain
right?
things you can do through that process.
Okay. So that is the turn that you basically will say, all right, we need to move the barrel.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That's about really the only thing you can do now.
Yeah.
Again, if you want to take it and put it in a new barrel, well, guess what? Its birthday just changed. So
that's it. That's it. All right. Sorry, I'm dancing around a little bit. I had a praying mantis at my feet that I asked one of the guys in the garage to try to get out of the garage. Our studio is a little different than a lot of studios. We're So yeah, Sean, I think might pass out from a praying mantis bite. I don't know if is that a thing. I don't know. Is that poisonous? It's going to eat you alive.
They were big enough. What
happened to your left hand?
This was claws.
All right. So I'm going to do my ratings, and then we'll kind of wrap up part one here. I got to say with the bourbon. So yeah, Ray Cheshire's out there. He says take the price out of it. I have a hard time doing that. I think there it is.
He came back.
We should just name it at this point. We'll name it Chicken Cock.
Yes, I love it.
He's on the
I saw the shadow. It looks like Mothra just flew over.
That's it. That's exactly right. I just hope Godzilla's not following.
He's on top of Steve's golf bag.
I don't use it anyways. All right. So I would give the bourbon. I'm kind of with Jonathan. I think without price point, I think it's a 9+ I think it's a great sipping whiskey. It's very enjoyable, neat. There's no need to add anything to it. It brings that sweetness. It's lighter, but there's substance there. I think a lot of times when you have what I describe as a lighter bourbon and with a little bit of that sweetness or floral notes, or we talked about the apple and everything like that, I think people look at that as well, there's not much there. I think this is intentional from hearing from you, is that this is something that you want it to be a sipping whiskey that pretty much anyone that, they can like barrel proof, they can like lighter stuff. This is something that's going to hit a palate that they're going to be like, that's pretty, that's good. That's a good bottle. That's a good pour.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm at, that kind of 9, but it's kind of give or take 9. I'd say plus or minus the 9 with the price point, because it is what it is. I mean, when you're coming in a $60 bottle, you're competing with obviously certain other $60 bottles, but you're also competing with bourbons that are at that 90 proof that are less than that. And so now it's when you go into, you've been in the industry so long, you have enough competition in your own brand over the years, at the different companies you worked for. You're competing against yourself, your own portfolio. A lot of times when you're coming out with a new bottle or a new label, you're like, all right, so where do we price this? What's our cost in it? How does it compare to other things at this price point? So I think there's something to it. So I definitely would give this a plus or minus 9. The rye, I would definitely do a plus 9. That rye is not what I expected. It's unique. I love that. I do like the fact that it's 95% rye, because it doesn't have, it's like I said, when I think of rye, some of my top everyday, if you will, ryes, which are not everyday ryes because you can't find them, is like a Willet when they were doing the 3-year rye. I love that. I like the E.H. Taylor straight rye. I like these products, and I also like the Russell's product. I like some of these others that are out there, but I think of spice. So when I was fortunate enough to take a sip of this, and I appreciate the samples, is that it was very much enjoyable. Again, it's something that it's something you can sip on. I don't think you need to cut it with water. You don't need to put an ice cube in there or anything like that, because it doesn't have that. For people that, you kind of hit it on the head, Greg. You weren't really a rye guy for a long time because of some of those, the spiciness, the kind of in your face, not heat, but kind of that kind of palate killer in a sense, in my opinion, sometimes, because it isn't what a lot of people expect. With this one, it's definitely more palatable. It's something that I think if anyone says that, I don't really care for rye, it's just try this. And I could even say, try this. It's not a rye. Just see what you think of it. It's a whiskey, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, you know what? This is really good. That's different. What is it? I'm like, that's a rye. And they're like, God damn it. Now they have to say they like some ryes. So that's where I say this is like a 9+ as well. I think with the cigar, I'm there with an 8 to 9 on that. Probably a 8.5 on the cigar, because again, at that price point, I think it's a great price point. I think it's unique. If you don't retrohale, when you smoke, I think you won't get. This is a cigar you won't get everything out of.
Yeah.
Personally, it's still going to be enjoyable, but you're not going to get what is truly meant on that cigar. And I think that is going to be through the retrohale, where you get just this explosion of flavor, which is great. So the pairing, I agree with them, definitely pairs better with the rye than the bourbon. But I do like the fact that I was going back and forth with even the bourbon and the cigar. Nothing overpowered. You could taste everything. I'm gonna have to seek out another bottle of each of these, the bourbon and the rye, so I can have it without a cigar. Whether I get a pour at a bar, or if I'm getting another bottle, probably get another bottle.
I might can find some for you.
You know where to find some, and you know where to find me. So, yeah, I think it's fantastic. I think this was great. Make that too. And with that being said, I do want to end part 1 here. And for those listening live, we're going to roll into part 2 after a brief intermission here. I do want to thank our sponsors, Tinder Box at Easton. Thank you, Jonathan, for bringing these cigars.
Quick question.
Oh, sorry.
My buddy Dave, I'm sorry. My buddy Dave from Georgia wants to know, is it in Georgia?
Oh, the chicken cock.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right, cool. He's a good friend of mine. So
we had someone else asking about Illinois.
Yep, Illinois as well. Yeah, this year we started selling in Illinois as well.
So it's out there. So guys, check it out for sure.
Yeah, it's tough. Again, being a small brand, you're really going to have to go out and ask the liquor store, your retail outlet to order it, because it's not going to be on the shelf in a lot of places.
Right. So it is about getting the word out and obviously asking for it, so that it does help promote it as well. That's how it works.
Order it online too. If you're in a state that allows online sales, it is online. So you can go to chickencockwhiskey.com and you can order it on the website as well.
That's good to know as well. But yeah, Tinderbox at Easton, and also General Cigars for the cigars tonight. We were smoking the Diesel Esteli Puro. I want to thank Altadis USA for the continued support. Like I said, I did have some from them. I grabbed the Upman, which was Upman Nicaragua, which is also made by AJ Fernandez. Nice. I thought that would be fitting if we didn't have a follow-up. But the CAO Bones is coming up next. BS Cigar Company, the gold and silver are available, both also Nicaraguan Puros, if you will. So check them out as well. And then patreon.com/bourbonandbs podcast. This is something where we appreciate all you guys listening, whether it be through the audio, through the live feed, or watching the videos after the fact. But we appreciate all you guys' support. We just had another one, Tony, who had been on the podcast before. He pledged during the show $10 a month. So he did a $10 tier. So he'll get a t-shirt 3 months after basically tonight. So in 3 months, I'll be sending him a t-shirt. So Tony, or anyone else out there that wants to join our patreon.com/bourbonandbs podcast, guys, just give your address when you sign up, and also your t-shirt size, because I'll get it out to you as soon as we can. Anything else, guys? That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Greg, thank you very much. And we'll
you.
talk to you here as soon as we end the part 1. Guys listening, again, check out part 2. We're going to be talking about time to regroup, which I think is a very fitting topic for as we get into October here in 2020. I think this is a great time for us to regroup. So, guys, happy Whiskey Wednesday to part 1. Thank you very much. Cheers. Greg, Jonathan, Nate, everyone out there. Cheers, everyone. All right, this is the intermission.
All right, guys, listen, I want to thank you again. I really enjoyed meeting you guys and chatting with you. I'm going to have to probably bail out here and see if I can get my wife some dinner tonight. So
yeah, you probably should do that.
Yeah.
Hey, Greg, I'll get your email, and we'll talk about the office and everything.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'll connect you guys for sure.
Jonathan, and again, thanks a lot, guys. I enjoyed it.
Great to meet you.
If you circle back sometime, I'll see if I can't get Aaron to send you some bigger samples, better samples next time. But yeah, we'll do it
at that barrel proof project.
We appreciate it, what you sent.
Yeah, thank you so much. This was amazing, and hope to meet up with you at some time once everything opens back up, maybe in 2021.
That'd be awesome, man. I'd enjoy that.
Absolutely, Greg. Thank you so much.
Take care, guys.
See ya.
Bye-bye.
So Dave used to come to the shop at Easton.
Oh, nice, Dave Kimmel.
Trader Joe's here. He was the,
oh, nice.
So now he's running the one in Athens. So he was in my cigar group.
Fantastic. Hey, I do want to say, as we get now, we're just on there without Greg. If anyone out there can give us a little bit of feedback. We had Avi out there saying that he couldn't hear us very well, but I'm not really sure exactly why. So if you could kick us some feedback there. You guys need a break?
Well, I'm going to step around the corner here.
All right, you're going to hit the outdoor porta potty?
I have to say, I was kind of geeking out a little bit when he was talking about the different sugars and everything in
Yeah.
the woods, because that was taking me back to my botany days when I was in undergrad.
Yeah, that is geeking out.
I was like, I know what he's talking about.
I enjoyed that part of the conversation only because like no one really talks about that part in detail, not to that knowledge depth. You know what I mean? They talk about charring, they talk about the sugars and everything else, but not laying it out like he did. That's amazing.
That's kind of like
when I go hang out with him, I'll send you all a picture. So
I appreciate that.
Well, that's kind of like when you went to that tasting with Eddie Russell?
It was with Eddie Russell, yeah.
And like a lot of people ask about the mash bills and aging and stuff like that, but then you, because of your cigar experience, you were asking him other questions like about the grains themselves.
I asked him the same kind of question, when I was leading into that. Does he have anything to do with the grains?
Yeah.
Because I think that's where we all kind of come from, is the tobaccos and where they're grown and, all that stuff, the farming side.
Yeah. And that was something that he was not expecting.
No, certainly not. Yeah. We'll go hit the porta potty. I might do the same thing here. I got text during this, so for those that are listening during the intermission here, Liz said the dog broke her thumb. You talked to her? And now apparently it's just jammed. Is she all right? So no hospital visit tonight. Did you chop it off? She had a cotton the leash or whatever it is that you get tied to. Oh, okay. Yeah, I got you. All right. Well, is that the med flight coming?
Yeah, it's a helicopter.
Chopper coming in. Just land on the patio. Be tight, but Dustin, you want to try to squeeze in here? It's going to be tight. Let's get it set up here, and we'll get it going, guys. I'm going to I'm not going to mute it. Jonathan, you're in charge.
Hey, it's just me now on the podcast, so this is fantastic. This is what I've always wanted.
Jonathan in the morning.
So, Tony was asking if there was a cigar shop in Athens. There was. I was a founding member along with Dave, who's been commenting, but it just closed down. But there's still places to buy cigars there, but I don't think there's a lounge there anymore. But we drank a lot of whiskey at that cigar shop. Played a lot of spades.
Is that legal?
Yeah. It was bring your own.
I thought you were gonna say, can you say that in Puerto Rico?
Yeah, those gentlemen taught me how to drink whiskey.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, obviously they did a good job.
Quickly as possible. We're going 4 deep. That sounds weird.
It doesn't sound not weird.
What's funny is early on in the podcast, I actually got a text message. Someone was asking, and why this person watches the podcast and yet they won't. Or no, I know the reason why. They're watching it on the TV, so they can't really comment.
Yeah,
when they're watching it on the TV.
I got a bunch of friends that watch on YouTube because they're on Facebook.
But someone actually texted me and goes, "Who's the guy in the middle?" And I'm sitting there going, "If you just watch the podcast, you'll figure out the answer to that question." And the reason I say it like that is because the other day I was watching a movie in my basement. It was a movie I'd never watched before, and the person watching it with me had never watched it before. And 20 minutes in the movie, they start asking me half a dozen questions. And I'm like, okay, here's the answers to those questions. Guess what? I've never watched this, and yet I know the answer to these questions. You know why? Because I'm paying attention instead of looking at my phone. So, yeah, just wait. So if that person is still watching, Jonathan, who's a rep for General Cigar Company, there's your answer. And I'm sure I'm going to get a not so happy text message here going, "You dick."
Yeah, several of my friends watch on YouTube. I wish there was a way for it to. Does that stream all the comments in from YouTube and Facebook, or just?
I believe it does.
Okay, cool.
Like, and it should actually notate on Steve's feed here, like if that comment is coming from Facebook or YouTube.
Okay, that's cool. Yeah, I've always watched podcast YouTube. I find it a better platform.
Did you unmute that channel?
I don't know. Yep.
Go to.
I see the bars moving. Barely.
Sean, is channel 4 unmuted or muted? I think it's muted. Yep.
Test. Ooh.
Yeah.
There it goes.
Yeah. See if it
Still
sounds
got
better.
10. They're holding on.
Don't say that.
Jonathan, I apologize. I didn't realize you brought the bones, and I have the Macanudo Green.
Dude,
Over here.
you're still smoking the portfolio. I appreciate it.
Yeah,
I
I had
love
it in
that
there.
cigar, though.
Can we see me? I don't need to be on camera, I guess.
I mean, you are the looks of the operation. Yeah,
And the voice.
Yeah, we're all in.
Pretty sure they only listen.
That is a
for
wide-
Steve's voice.
That's called the
600
wide
pounds of man meat.
It's the wide handsome
Wait,
lens.
is that it?
The power
wide.
panel.
More than that.
It's
More
got-
than
Yeah. Between the four of us.
that.
Yeah, we got to be pushing 8.
500.
Just
Yeah.
go with the wide handsome lens. Jesus,
Yeah.
it's a filter.
I'm pretty sure I broke that one.
All right, you guys just. I'm gonna go.
Because wide or because. Never mind.
D, all the above.
All right, I can't. Sorry.
Sorry.
Welcome back to the Bourbon and BS podcast. This is episode 136, part 2. This is Beyond the BS. We've got a lot of people on here. We haven't done 4 people on the screen in a while, so we'll find out. Freddie Burt says 6 feet. Yeah, there's 6 feet between all of us at least. It's probably more than that. We've got Jonathan Herring still with us, Nate Hale as well, and Dustin Bovey has joined us on the screen. Dave Campbell says this is like Wayne's World a bit. I agree. I absolutely envision at some point that, and this is probably not really a true vision, but you know that in like Wayne's World when the movie, when it's like, hey guys, that looks like Wayne's basement, but that's not Wayne's basement. Isn't that weird? So we're gonna have to recreate this stage in like the sound stage somewhere someday.
Or you could just go like Rogan and just create a really weird, ugly studio. that
Yeah.
pisses all his fans off.
Yeah, we'll probably do that.
Yeah.
So part 2, we were fortunate enough. I want to thank our sponsors, actually, the Tinder Box at Easton in Columbus, Ohio. Check them out. We are smoking by way of our Tinder Box's connection with General Cigars. We're smoking. I'm still smoking the Diesel Esteli Puro. Check out part 1 for our review towards the end, especially for that part of it. We're going to be smoking the CAO Bones from CAO and Ricky Rodriguez, which we featured Ricky on a podcast a couple months back.
Yep.
Check that one out. I'm not sure what episode number that was. And then also Altadis USA. Like I said, I do have some cigars here if anyone wants to have that next. The Upman Nicaragua, H. Upman Nicaragua. And that is also by AJ Fernandez, which makes that diesel line as well. So we have that. Altadis and Josh Bentley, who was on recently. We appreciate your guys' support as always. And also BS Cigar Company. The gold and silver is available. I do want to throw out also the Patreon. We got a new Patreon patron tonight during the episode, which we appreciate that. Tony, shout out to you. He did the $10 tier. There's a $5, a $10, and $25 tier. You guys can actually contribute whatever you'd like, whatever you feel is appropriate or whatever you can afford. And you can actually probably just throw in $1 if you guys want a month. I mean, honestly, it's pretty flexible, and we appreciate every little bit of support, not only listening, supporting, sharing, liking, all that good stuff, but we have a good time doing it and hope you guys enjoy listening to it live on Facebook Live or YouTube Live. Wednesday night, 7:30 to whenever, and then also on iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and many, many more when it gets posted. I posted last week's episode actually today, so check that out on all the audio when you guys are driving around. Hopefully, I know like Jonathan's traveling again, so hopefully a lot of people are back on the road listening to podcasts and everything else. So patreon.com/bourbonbs podcast. Thank you guys very much, and we continue to appreciate all you guys' support. We were drinking Chicken Cock bourbon and also rye tonight. Chicken Cock whiskey. Great stuff. Listen to the review on that. We were fortunate enough to have Gregg Snyder on, who is the master distiller, who is a absolute wealth of knowledge of this industry. My favorite part of that podcast episode, the first part at least, was definitely that story about him and Jimmy and Booker. And I mean, just the fact he's sitting in something like, was it Booker's?
Yeah.
It was his.
Yeah, it
was
was
his kitchen.
Yeah.
And just basically trying different whiskeys and talking about them. I mean, it was a phenomenal story.
While they were cooking out in the backyard.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, for a cookout, and that was back in 2001. So that's amazing to hear some
Tickets
stories
would
like
go,
that.
what, 5,000 a piece right
I mean, that
now
would
among
be
bourbon
minimum.
nerds?
If they were sitting at this table, I think the views would be higher instead of us. Part 2 is, how did I frame this?
Time to regroup.
Time to regroup.
Showing the Coke.
So I actually had someone reach out to me earlier today, and I was thinking of how, like, what do we want to talk about? We got Jonathan in the garage. I didn't know if Greg from Chicken Cock Whiskey was going to stay on. I didn't really know where we were going to go with this tonight, because it is, like I've been saying the last few weeks, it's just kind of the same thing over and over again. It's like we're in this everyone keeps calling it like Groundhog Day. You know, it's the quarantine, it's COVID, it's politics, it's the election, now it's sports. I mean, it's new stuff happening, schools, you know, stuff like that, but it's all kind of the same thing. And I had a friend reach out to me saying that they had unfortunately been furloughed, and it's like I also saw same day that 100,000 restaurants, according to whatever restaurant association, that they just recently said that 100,000 restaurants are closed for good, based on all this stuff nationwide. And so they're estimating 100,000 restaurants are closed, and that equates to about 3 million jobs. And they are not coming back. Like the restaurants are closed, not like still closed during quarantine or any of this stuff. They are done. They have filed. They're out of business.
There's a variety of retailers that are doing the same or on the verge.
And I don't have the number on that. I mean, this is something I saw on the news this morning. And I know Nate and I were joking, well, sort of joking, but the fact that like he says he doesn't even watch the news anymore because he just can't take it. And I think that's a lot of people. I need another pour of this, actually. But I think that one of these things with this, when we look at this time to regroup, it's, you know, it's like my friend that was, you know, came back to work and now furloughed again. And now it's like, what do? You know what I mean? It's, you've got that situation. You've got these restaurants that are just, you know, small businesses mainly. And you're losing not only the servers, the kitchen staff. You're looking at these people that put their life into this. You know, they've been in that business, whether it be a year, 20 or 30 or 40 years. They're not coming back. I mean, they just can't. Mm-hmm. You know, everyone thinks that the idea is like, oh, we'll just keep, you know, supporting them. And that's the problem. That's why the closing is, because we're not supporting them enough. And as we get closer, I have, like Nate, and I'm not speaking for anyone else at this table, but like Nate, it's exhausting to listen to the news. It's exhausting to look at Facebook and social media still. It's exhausting to see and maybe it's not growing, but I think it's like, see this like growing, just blatant, open, I want to call it hate, but it's like your opinion and that's it. Like, and that's all I see. If I'm on Twitter, and I know what, we talked about this in previous episodes, but one thing that came to my mind recently is, why the hell are you getting on your social media like Facebook? And I respect anyone doing this. I'm not trying to talk bad if you guys are listening or anything like that. I don't want, this is not directed towards anyone, but I think it's a grain of thought that you guys should put into it, is that if you're on Facebook, the idea behind Facebook is initially to be able to share with friends, family, and people that you know. Now that's expanded. I understand that. But it's like the fact that if I know you and whatever my relationship is with you, and I know you by like in person, not just like a Facebook friend, not a cigar friend, not a bourbon friend, and nothing against that as well, but like I have an intimate knowledge of who you are as a person. And every day as I'm scrolling through my newsfeed on Facebook, it's Biden this, it's Trump this, it's COVID this, it's whatever it is literally just your agenda and your belief. It's like you're putting it out there. I don't know if you're venting, but then I look at some comments from other people I know that are shared acquaintances, and it's just like, you got what's the point of this? Like, you're either preaching to your choir or you're talking to people that don't think like-minded, but there's no conversion of people, in my opinion, based on an article. And there's the Twitter side of it that I know, if you have a lot of followers or you follow a lot of people, there's a little bit more of a broader scope, better or worse. But it's just, when I say it's time to regroup, there are times where it's personal, like your business goes under, you lose your job, you know, you had a rough time during quarantine and your relationship's over or whatever it is, or if things are going well, it's time to regroup. I think it's time that at this point you've got your own opinions, but we have to get back together somehow. I am tired of having a conversation with people that I know or don't know, and then when it turns into something that is a sticking point to them, it is like, nuh-uh, is the response. It's like, well, then you obviously don't care about this. And I'm like, that's kind of where I'm coming from.
People use the social media platforms as catapults anymore. It's kind of disheartening to see a lot of times, just the amount of negativity there is anymore. And like Nate, you know, I don't watch the news really at all anymore. And I haven't for years now. And and I'll get people who tell me, "Hey, did you see this?" Well, no, I didn't. Well, it was on the news. How could you not see it? Well, I don't watch it. And a lot of times it's just because I'm trying to funnel out that negativity, not because I don't want to know what's going on, but because I'm trying to give myself that own positive mindset, because I know the second I start seeing stories and posts and documents and things like that of, well, he said, she said, and this is my opinion and yours doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It starts giving myself negative vibes and puts me in a mindset that just essentially kind of ruins the day or week, even for that matter, because it's so constant anymore. And
Yeah, but can it give you motivation?
I think it can, but I think it's so flooded and concentrated anymore that I find myself, when I open Facebook, it's just, I scroll past a lot of that stuff. The second I see something and I start to read it, and if it's directed towards a lot of the same things, it keeps coming up, and I'm just scroll right past it. I just don't even read it, because I'm not going to waste my time on it. Everyone has their opinion, and I value people's opinions, but if I know that they're not going to reciprocate that, then I'm not going to waste my breath.
Well, and
Well,
I
think
in a
that-
sense.
I'm sorry. I think the reciprocation is the biggest part of it, and I think that
Exactly.
you say that. I'm not picking on you in general, but I even come to that point where sometimes I say, why I appreciate your opinion, and I actually am listening to you. That doesn't mean that whatever knowledge bomb that you may have thought you just dropped on me is going to change my idea of what the said topic is.
Right.
I want to take it into consideration.
Yeah.
But I'm a big one to say, well, what's the source?
Yeah.
Like I'm not doing this whole thing where it's like you share a headline and I'm like, well, that explains it. You know what I mean? 2 sentences. This person said this. Cool. I don't care when. I don't care what the context was. It's just the fact that this person said this. So you're either you're creepy, or you're an asshole, you're a racist, or you're whatever it might be. It's just like whatever that thing is, or you're an idiot. You don't respect people because of the mask thing or the COVID, where your stance is on what your lifestyle is. You should be staying home, and you're still going out. It's just like all of these hot topics right now. When I say regroup, I really think that the dialogue is lacking. It's very one-sided.
It is.
Go ahead, Jonathan.
I'll say where I think things have changed. I think 5 years ago, if you posted something, everyone that disagreed with that, I'm not talking about a strong political opinion or whatever. I'm talking about something like, watched my Falcons lose today. That sucked. And you have 6 people commenting, I don't watch football anymore. Blah, blah, blah. I'm not. And so, like, I'm scared to even post that I'm watching fucking football in America because you could get blasted by somebody. And it's
Bear down.
like you're going to offend somebody no matter what you say. And I think 5 or 6 years ago, I think people were way better at ignoring and scrolling past. And now everyone feels like, I think if they ignore that, they're condoning it. They're condoning your behavior that they disagree with, and they've got to put their comment in. And there are people that I have been turned off to personally because of their Facebook posts that I used to respect, I used to hang out with, I used to think of as a friend, and they've gotten so vile and one-sided and argumentative and rude to other people that in a way I don't really mind it, because it's kind of shown me who some people really are. And and the people that I still respect, that I haven't had that issue with, maybe my respect has even grown for them. But when you talk about regrouping, I think you're totally right. It's time for us to, I loved it after 9/11 this year. The common theme among posts were, let's remember how we were then for just a day or two. And we came together and we realized we're all in this together. At the end of the day, no matter who the president is, who you like, if you're Republican or Democrat, we're all in this together. And we are. I mean, we're a team. We're all pulling along together, and we've got to remember that.
Well, I think the divide is useful to a point, because if everyone was like-minded, you're obviously not going to get anywhere, right? I mean, it's just going to go too far down. And I think people badmouth the two-party system we have about a lot of issues, and I can agree to a point, but it's you look back at history and it's like you go one way for 4 or 8 years, whether you're talking about federal or state or whatever it might be. And then, eventually someone else will the other side will come in and you start battling it back, and you kind of steering down, hopefully a common road, right? But you go one way too far, you're in trouble because it doesn't include everyone. I appreciate that. And these comments that I'm not going to speak for Jonathan, but I think that's one of those things that just because you have that mentality, it doesn't necessarily, at least for me, I believe that you can call it the privilege thing or whatever, but I'm not trying to get away from some of the topics. I'm saying you got to have your ears open, not just your fucking mouth.
Yeah.
And that's my biggest thing. And that goes on all sides of it for a lot of different issues. I mean, that's employment when you're the employee and the boss is telling you one thing and they may be way off in your mind, but you still got to listen to the point that they're saying it for a reason. I think that's just, it's communication in general. And I think that's what's lacking is effective communication. And I think a lot of people think that the louder you get, the better it's going to be received, or the more it's going to like actually sink in. I'll talk loud enough or I'll say enough things that eventually the bulldog mentality, which I got to be honest, it doesn't ever work in any relationship, whether it be professional, personal, romantic, or when it comes to this type of stuff on social media. Your bulldog technique isn't working. And I strongly encourage you to change the technique, because all it's doing is making things worse. And the bulldog technique will, no matter what the issue is basically, it's not regrouping. It is strengthening the people that are like-minded as you, and you have stopped listening to what you're actually either for or against. You're missing what the other side and the 80% in between those sides are actually thinking.
Yeah,
in my opinion.
I just think that until we realize that there are smart, good people on both sides of every issue, there are people that love our country on both sides of every issue. And until we realize that, you're able, it's just empathy. It's understanding that we all come from different backgrounds, from different life experiences, that we can't understand everyone's life experience. We got to have some basic empathy. And I think that's what we're lacking more than anything. Everyone is looking at things, not everyone, but a lot of people are looking at things from their perspective, their life plan. And, man, I mean, you gotta open up and realize that none of us have all the answers. None of us have it all figured out.
Well, things change all the time. Nate, what do you want to say?
Well, I was going to say, I think we would benefit a little bit more if, instead of having these shouting matches online on social media, if we
What'd you say? Sorry, couldn't. Go ahead.
No, I think we would have better conversation if we were having the conversation face to face. I think being online and not being able to actually see that person takes away from the quality of conversation. When I was a basketball coach, one of the rules that you didn't know that I was.
You don't look like a basketball coach.
I was.
Actually, you do look like a basketball coach.
For 1 year.
Just sweating. You know what I mean? How many clipboards did you break? How many clipboards did you break?
The
As a
clip-on
coach,
tie.
none. As a player, one.
You broke over your knee, or did you throw it down?
Over my knee.
Nice. That's class. All right, go on. I'm sorry. These are important questions in my head.
But no, when I was
good.
When I was a coach, and this was before I got a full-time career.
Yeah.
One of the rules that I had was if a parent called me to talk about their kid or playing time or whatever it was.
What age bracket are we talking about?
Middle school.
Okay.
I was the middle school basketball coach.
Parents are awesome.
It was a combined 7th and 8th grade team.
All right.
But one of the rules I had
where you're
was
going here.
Over the phone, we'll schedule a meeting, but we're not going to talk about whatever issue you have over the phone. We're going to talk about it in person.
No, that's good.
Because people are a lot more brave over the phone or on social media than they are person to person.
So my wife coached, and she had a rule like that, in that, you if a parent at the beginning of the year, parents were not allowed to call her with concerns. If they had a concern about the kid's playing time or whatever, they had to tell their child. Their child then had to come to her after they had a conversation. If the parents still wanted to talk with them, that's fine. The first line was the kid has to come to the coach.
But here right now, I'm sorry. Like, go ahead with your thought. Now, I just want to point out that you can't do that right now.
So
You can't be face to face. I think that's part of where we're at.
Well,
And I think that's part of, actually, not to get into the conspiracies or anything like that, but I think that is part of the separation that's happening, whether it's intentional or not, is that based on all of this stuff, there is more separation, and you have more keyboard warriors. You have more over the phone type of stuff. People think they can run major corporations. Like, yeah, we do it all the time. I was like, but the small to medium sized businesses you can't hire, fire people. You can't discipline. You can't do all these things. You can't even praise people effectively over a Zoom call.
That's true.
No.
That's very
In
true.
my opinion. Go ahead, Nate. I'm sorry.
No, so at the beginning of the season, like I had basically like a 1-page contract written up. Like, this is what it's expected of your kid. Like, whether it came to academics, what the school's policy was with academics, with showing up for practices, with game days, like, with scheduling those appointments. If you want to talk about your kid, like, here's this 1-page contract. The parents have to sign it. If you don't sign it, then don't ever call me and want to talk to me about your kid. The other thing I had was, if you want to talk to me about why your kid's not getting enough playing time, I will only talk to the parent about their kid. Because sometimes parents will sit there and go, well, this kid's not. No, we're
I
not
get
talking
it.
about,
I get it.
We're not talking about this other person's kid. We're talking about your kid. Like, what can your kid do to get more playing time?
Well, I think that that's a great, in a sense, not metaphor, but it's kind of the same thing. When people have a conversation, they're using that platform to talk about other things and not what they're doing. It's do as I say, not as I do. I think that's a big part of that. I think it's very, very relative to that.
But when you're talking about, like, if I'm talking with a parent about only what their kid can do better in order to get more playing time, it's completely up to that player and that parent. They're the ones that have the control. If they sit there and they start saying, this kid's doing this or this kid, like, well, they're pushing control to someone else. They're pushing the blame.
Well, they're trying to take that control off of your hands. That's the thing, is that there is a natural type of order there. But if you don't like what's happening, then it's you need to address it.
Then you need to do better. Like, okay, your kid's not getting playing time. Do you realize your kid can't dribble with his left hand?
All right. Well, speaking to that,
it's hard.
How do we take responsibility for helping our society regroup? What can we be doing? The way I've been doing it is
I want to throw up David Campbell's comment here too. Social media should be about cigars, drinks, and friends and family, in my opinion. Leave the politics out of it for a moment.
If you look at my social media posts for like the last several months, it's once a week sharing this podcast on my personal feed, and then like every now and then I'll post like what I'm having on Sundays for breakfast, because my wife makes an amazing breakfast on Sunday mornings. And, of course, I make the steaks for Steak and Wine Sunday.
It's perfect. Yeah, people that know. What were you going to say, Jonathan?
I just say, I mean, if we talk about the regrouping and it's something we feel like needs to be done, and then, again, we talk about right now we're basically saying other people do this, other people do that, which is what we were just talking about with the kids at the coaching.
Yeah.
So what do we do as men that have jobs, that have careers, that are trying to be good members of our society, that took an Uber here where he could drink as much as he wanted? What do we do to help society regroup? What are some things that we should start doing? Because I think I've been basically, in a lot of ways, ignoring the problem. I don't post anything. I don't get involved in anything comment wise. What do we do? How do we make things better?
So to Nate's point, that's one of them. I think that it's there was a time that even I was during what we call the COVID quarantine. I don't know what people call it. I don't know what the history books are going to say about it. You know what I mean? But I don't know what you're actually calling it. But I was on social media a lot, and it was about cigars and the podcast, and trying to continue on some sense of normalcy, not only for myself, but for people that follow the podcast, follow our business, and do, things of that nature. And I think I had a lot of people thanking me for doing that, which is not what it was like. It wasn't like, oh man, a pat on the back, whatever. It was literally just like, I, at one point was feeling guilty. Like, I can't post on my personal page or the business page, me smoking a cigar and be like, hey, have a great Wednesday. And it's like, do you know what's going on? And like, I thought that people were just going to blow me up and be like, you are an insensitive prick because you're having a fucking good Wednesday.
Yeah.
And I can't believe you'd say that. Did you not see the news today? Did you see this person died or, you know, whatever else? And I'm like, yeah, no, that's terrible. Yeah. But me just talking to everyone about that is not going to change everything. So doing what Nate was talking about and posting a picture of his breakfast, you know, not everyone's going to like that. That's fine. But I mean, I think there is a sense of normalcy that there is okay. There is, you know, it is okay, in my opinion, even now, as always, it's okay to show people that you are doing well, because if that leaves, that normalcy that people are really seeking out right now, if that leaves social media and all we have is politics and all we have is, you know, if you're not like me, you're against me, that's even more of a problem. So I think that one of the things that we can do, as anyone listening out there, is that you can have, as Diana says, the positivity is needed. I think that is something that, you know, posting something like Nate, you know, these are good things. Now, what I will say also is that sometimes within reason, I think that we can, and I think that's one of the things that I do for the longest time before all this shit. I didn't want to turn this podcast, especially part 2. It was very hard not to turn this into current events and politics and all that stuff. It's got to the point where now it's
inevitable.
Permeates everything we do now.
It's inevitable. I mean, we did the SWAT thing. We've done some other things to kind of pull away from it, but I need the outlet. I think other people need the outlet, and it's something that I think I'm not trying to shove anything down anyone's throat. I think this is something this is good conversation. Jonathan, you asking that question, what can we do? And it's not just us at this table right now, but it's anyone listening. I think it's try to be positive. It's try to have a sense of normalcy, and also you might have to. I did this. We talked about it on the podcast for many episodes, especially during the beginning. On when I I considered myself overweight, and when I was trying to do all this stuff and try to get back on track to regroup, I started posting, you know, check-ins at the gym. I started, posting some positive things. That was as much for me that it was for other people. And it wasn't just for like likes and everything else. It simply was like this, using the social media as accountability. I am putting it out there in the universe, and I really don't want to have to go back and delete things. I have gone back and deleted things before, typically based because I was drunk at the time. But most other times it was because I wanted to do it so that I could look back. And I love Facebook memories because it shows, 4 or 5 years ago, I checked in at the gym. I had a game at softball, had a great time doing this, went to this concert, whatever. I see some like, you have memories with these people, and it was because of comments. And that's what I think is truly missing overall. And what we can do is really try to get a voice out there. I'm all for you guys not posting a whole lot right now or engaging with people. That is the big wild card, I think, right now, is that there are a lot of people more like you. The majority is like you, that you are sitting on your hands. You're not the 20% on any side that is just blowing up any social media feed or getting in front of a camera or anything like that, just to basically have verbal
diarrhea,
throw up or diarrhea, or verbally vomiting on everyone, just being like, listen to me. This is what you have to do. This is what you have to do. Dustin, what you got?
I think, to Jonathan's question, I think, Steve, you've done a phenomenal job with even just starting the community page. I think
was a way for me to post stuff and get people involved without me bringing in personal people about this stuff.
Right. But I think it's the way that it's grown just goes to show like how much cigar and whiskey can really, truly bring people together. And I can almost assure you there's many, many people in the community page who either smoke cigars and don't drink whiskey, or vice versa, or who don't do any of it. Right. But it's that camaraderie that comes with the community. And I think one way that we can kind of help regroup is to take that same mentality and not put it on blast, out in the world, but use it in everyday life. If you do, go out to the store or something, and there's someone who's, kind of has that verbal diarrhea and going off the deep end, utilize that camaraderie to, listen. You know, sometimes that's all they want is just to listen and say, hey, you know, I understand your side. I do. I'm not saying I'm with you. I'm not saying I'm against
you
you,
can say
but
you don't understand their side. That's okay.
right, right. But I think the point of the matter is when, and I've seen this more times than not, especially with where I work at, because you know we're in a urban area, very much so, and I've had that opportunity where you know I've had disgruntled customers who it's an outside factor that they come into the store and they're already up in arms and disgruntled, if you will, and they take it out in the store, and it's all a matter of how you approach the situation. And you know, given in the position that I'm in, you know, I have to be that person to kind of de-escalate it, but I utilize that same kind of community mentality that we have in that group to kind of pull them to the side and say, you know, what's really going on? Talk to me. And and I think if you give them
a lot of people,
right, but if you give them that time to really actively listen, and that's that active communication that you know, Steve, you were talking about, it really kind of makes them take a step back.
Well,
and I've seen it happen more than once.
Yeah, David Campbell says that you know listening is important. Sometimes people just need to be heard. You don't always have to respond, but listen first. Having the conversation is good. I agree completely.
So Thursday night, I invited a few friends over to watch football. And I'm sorry I watched football, but so I had,
what's your team?
Falcons. Sorry.
So you should apologize for.
So I had a as far left as you get, Harvard educated, sociology PhD person on my porch. I had a left leaning he's a public defender. I had a friend of mine that's an artist, but he's on the conservative side. And then I had me, which I would place myself a moderate. All four of us sitting on the porch, and football came and went. And we sat out there and talked politics, we talked about the shootings. We talked about all these different big society issues that are going on. We had the greatest conversation, and we went in depth. You know, what's driving this? What's driving that? And these are people that have vastly different opinions about things. And if we tried to do this on social media, it would turn really ugly really quick. You would have people supporting this person and going back and forth. And you know what? I walked away from that learning so much from these people.
Sounds good.
That have such different opinions to me. And it was fantastic. And I was able to ask some questions. I was able to ask questions that if I asked them on social media, someone might call me liberal nutbag, or they might call me racist or a bigot, but I was able to ask true and honest questions to people that knew about the issues and had a particular stance. And it was fantastic. And we stayed out there till 1:40 in the morning. I had to kick them off my porch because I had to get up and work in the morning. But it was so great. And I think that's where those conversations can be had. I think almost every time when those conversations are had that way among sane people, you know, I think it always almost goes well in person. But you know, and two of the people out there had gotten into such a social media disagreement that they were like not talking on social media anymore. And
two people on the porch, yeah.
But in person, we had this great and it was reaffirming to me. It was a regrouping of I got people together in our town that had kind of come on the outs, and then they were able to understand each other.
You guys see it. There's a common theme here between like you and Nate and also Dustin. But I mean, what I'm honing in on is the fact that, again, I kind of mentioned is that there is a disconnect already. And now there are people that will say, even you having people over on your front porch, you shouldn't have had it because of COVID.
Yeah.
You know, so and that's your opinion. That's your understanding of it based on what you know. And vast majority of people are not even.
It's a big porch.
Just saying that, like, most people that have the strongest opinions have no medical background at all, and they don't even read more than just the headlines. But there are people that have personal experience with this. I think that there is a larger disconnect now. I think that's going to be a tougher obstacle to come over, you know, get to jump over, because you can't get in person anymore. Like there is a reason, and I'm not going to put up air quotes, but they're half-heartedly there. There is a reason to not get together right now to have said conversation. And again, I'm not saying anything necessarily good or bad, but now there is the movement, obviously, of doing the absentee ballots, and there's more and more movement to just stay away from each other and stay on the media, the social media, and just, you know, everything that is feeding to you guys. It's more of use that and then respond via
But that
keyboard, or at the
conversation
very
could have
most.
happened during Zoom. I mean, it could have happened, maybe not as well.
Zoom
but-
is, it's not the same thing.
Yeah, it's not the same thing. But I'm saying I don't think we can use that as an excuse for our idiotic behavior as a country right now. I think the only excuse is people not having any etiquette. And maybe social media is a new thing. Maybe we're going to at some point figure out some etiquette with it. I doubt it, but
We won't.
maybe we will, because there is etiquette in how you talk to people in person for the most part. And yes, there are people that don't follow the rules of etiquette, but for the most part, we have a contract as a society. You treat people respectfully when you talk to them, and maybe that could happen. I doubt it will. One thing I noticed too, and be ageist here, there's a lot of people that are older and a lot of people that are super young, and a lot of times those are on that 20%. Getting out there and yelling at each other on social media, and maybe I'm wrong there, but
No, I
that's a lot of
think
what
there's
see.
I think there's some merit to that. And again, this is all opinion. Obviously, at that point, there's no statistics for me to back that up. I don't have any numbers on that as far as who's the most vocal on one side or the other. But I do think the impression is so. Let me put it this way: like when I was 20, I'm trying to figure out when that was. I was in college, and again, I was a social major. I was a sociology major as well.
Yeah.
And you know, I voted for Ralph Nader because I was like, I was like, yeah, I get what he's saying. I think that's a great, you know, it's a great platform. And it was at that time, I feel like it was not what it is now, which is your platform is against the other platform only.
Right.
It was actually a platform.
What do you actually support?
Yeah. I was talking to my friend Dean, who's 72 or whatever, and he was watching the both national conventions, and he's like, I've watched both of them. And he's from Boston. He's got this great Boston accent, which I'm not drunk enough to do here.
Not a lot of syllables.
It was great, but no, he's a Spanish teacher of all things. If you can imagine having a Boston accent, Spanish teacher.
Como se llama? I don't know. Sorry, I don't
Great
know.
guy, but I mean, we started talking about this over some pints, and he was like, you know, I've been watching the Democratic National Convention. Now I'm watching the Republican. He's like, no one's talking about their platform. No one is like, I've been watching every night, and it's all about the other side, about what they're doing wrong, and that's the scary part. What I was going to say is when I was that age, I thought, all right, I was more idealistic, I guess. That I think now it's when you get past the headlines, when you get past just the feelings, and it's, in my opinion, I don't care if you're offended, that's fine. We've had this. Is that I don't think that there's a sense of there's adults talking. And I think that's something that with age and experience, there's more credibility, and more often than not now, and I hope this is the case, is that you do watch. I encourage you guys to at least watch some news, and watch not just what suits your narrative,
Right.
but watch both sides.
I have a show I watch
Mhm.
every morning. It's By the Hill, and it's a left moderate or right moderate, and they talk the issues for 10 minutes and tell the news of the day. It's really fantastic.
Yeah.
I really enjoy it, but there are very few sources out there. But I like to think that I'm smart enough to listen to an NPR on my what is the Alexa thing, and if I feel a
That is a
slant
thing.
or see if I see that they're well, I would like to think I'm smart enough to figure that out.
Here's the
and
problem, though, is
understand
that so this was 5 days ago. So again, I consider myself moderate to definitely more conservative, if you will. But I follow CNN, and I watch CNN. I don't enjoy watching like Fox News, but then I'm watching a lot of local news, and I try to find out exactly where their ties are, right? But CNN had this. This is a great example about something going on as far as a narrative or pushing some sort of feeling, right? There's very little science or statistics. Here is the alert. It was picked up by local news. This is 5 days ago. This is CNN. And again, I'm not talking bad necessarily about CNN or anything else, but you guys can come up with your own opinions about all this stuff. So it says adults who tested positive for COVID-19 were approximately twice as likely to have reported dining at a restaurant in the 14 days before becoming ill than those who tested negative, according to a new CDC study. That's the tweet. That's the headline. That is what came across on my Apple alerts and everything else. Mind you, they talk about restaurants. The picture is people holding beer glasses.
Yeah.
So, okay, whatever. So I read the article. 3/4 of the way down. You really have to read a ways down. Quote, the study comes with some limitations, including that more research is needed to determine whether similar findings would emerge among a larger group of patients. And the question assessing dining at a restaurant did not distinguish between indoor versus outdoor dining. So when you looked at it, their population, so any of these things, I encourage everyone to actually look at what the population statistics are. Like how many people they survey? Less than 400 people. It was 380 or whatever. I can't exactly remember, but it was less than 400 people. So as no one reads my shit, but it's like from the article itself.
On Twitter.
I love it. I barely do anything. I see that. From the article itself, admitting the data population wasn't adequate for actual findings. The headline sure didn't make it seem like that. There's a problem again. Fear and misleading headlines, and some people don't read the actual article. I think most people don't read the actual article. You were nodding. You saw that.
Yeah, I got the headline.
You got the headline.
Updates.
So you read that, you see that, and then all of a sudden I see you, and like, you still going up to Fido? And I'm like, yeah, I'm going up there. It's like, I don't know if you saw the CDC study, but I mean, you are definitely, what does it say?
Almost twice as likely.
Approximately twice as likely to get COVID. And I'm like, really? Where'd you see that? Well, I saw it on alert, and I was like, oh, can you forward me the article? And they're like, well, I don't have it anymore. And you're like, did you read it? Well, I mean, yeah, I read part of it. Did you read the part where it said the population statistics of what they actually studied didn't mean shit?
I was probably at a bar when I got that alert.
You're probably at a bar. It's literally like
in terms of statistical significance, there's almost none.
I'm telling you, it's like you can literally be like, I asked 10 people.
Yeah, it's misleading, and I agree. And but I'm
Bobby
saying,
Hirschman says news
exactly,
blows. This is why you guys.
So we got
now you're talking news.
We got point one. Point one is more positivity posts. Let's
Spread the love.
Spread the love. What's another step? What's another step that we take?
So I know this is not popular with this is get yourself educated. And by that I don't mean necessarily it's read shit.
I think
educate yourself by having that knowledge base more than just what you see on your alerts.
I think to branch off of that is a lot of people will read an article, and if it's not something that they agree on, they will dissect it and then find things that are wrong, and then find other articles or even just sentences that they've found somewhere else to combat it, just because they want so much to be right.
They
want validation for their own beliefs.
Right. And I think in today's world, there's so many more people that are looking for that validation just in life in general, that with everything that's going on, that it's consumed even themselves, that they're looking for that validation in their own beliefs.
I
Instead
agree.
of just simply having a belief as their own and then taking other people's opinions and beliefs into consideration. That doesn't mean you have to believe what they believe. That doesn't mean you have to agree with their opinion. But it also doesn't mean that you have to look for avenues to beat down that person's belief or opinion either.
So we're all sitting here at the table and we all think we're doing it right.
Oh, definitely not. No, I do
You don't
not.
think that?
I do not back that up at all.
I mean, I think I try to be very open-minded, listen to both sides. What I'm saying is I think the majority of people probably think that that's what they're doing. And I think the majority of people are doing that. And Dave said it earlier, out of 1,000 people, 995 are probably good, pretty decent people. But the voice is given so strongly to those who blast all
Yeah,
the time.
5.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's the rule of thumb a lot of times when you're dealing with business as well, is that 80-20. You have the 80 in the middle, you have the 10 at the top that you don't need to worry about, right? And you should actually praise a little bit more, but because they're doing such a good job, you don't do that. So then all of a sudden you're losing credibility with them. There's 10% at the bottom that you spend 80% of your time on.
Mhm.
And there's the 80% in the middle that you're also not really caring about, because you're like, well, you guys are doing okay. I'm going to bat you along the path and all that stuff. So now you've literally lost, to a sense, 90% of your staff because you're spending so much time on the bottom 10%.
Same with your customers.
When you
Same with
really
your
should be
customers,
focusing
right.
80% of your time on that 80% in the middle.
Yeah.
To help build them up. I think the other piece of it is so much anger in the world that people in society who are behind these keyboards, they'll put their thoughts out, and then you have the people that just want to put their thought out just to put it out.
Yeah.
But when you read it, you're only reading it in your own connotation. So
Yeah.
if you're going into the whole thing already in a pissed off mood, maybe because of something else unrelated,
Yeah.
you're going to read it in your own connotation and think, well, this person's a fucking asshole. I don't agree with what they're saying whatsoever.
You
When
can agree with what I'm saying.
and-
I still think I'm an asshole.
We do.
Shout out to you and Ray.
We need a hashtag. That always solves all the problems.
Hashtag asshole crane. But I think
That's a good one. That'll
the
I get some more whiskey.
the
Some whiskey too.
the fact of the matter is, unfortunately, the platforms of social media and the keyboard warriors that we've talked about, they're not going away anytime soon, and we have to find a way to do our part, like you said, Jonathan, is to keep that positivity going, and maybe not be a mediator or a moderator with the whole thing, but try to look at the bigger picture for a lot of people. And I'm not saying, people go out there and just start adding to the comment wars,
Yeah.
but
You
Take
guys
the
get
time
along.
yeah, just like Kenny Chesney says, can we all just get along?
Well,
Well, there you go. That's it. Let's
Wait.
call it. Kenny Chesney. Everyone tune into No Shoes Radio on XM Sirius, and everything will be solved.
I'd listen to it.
I'd
Can we get blue chairs?
Shoot myself in the head.
oh, jeez.
Don't do that.
No, to go to Jonathan's question about something else other than just shouting on social
Like
media.
actionable steps.
Well, so when Steve first mentioned the topic of regrouping, the first thing that popped in my head, because a lot of people and a lot of the conversation we've had so far when we talk about regrouping is very wide scale, very large circle, and the first thing that popped in my head was small circle. Like if you want, like the first thing you need to regroup is yourself. Like whether that is take a vacation, take time away, whether it's take time away from work, take time away from social media, like regroup yourself, figure out what is important to you, figure out what your values are, why you have those values. And only when you have a better understanding of that or strengthen those will you be able to have an impact on a larger circle. You can't help the world if you're not going to take care of yourself first.
Right.
100%.
I think so many people struggle with that too. And we've talked about that on previous episodes, is that self-reflection, to take that moment to take your own personal step back and realize that, I'm angry at so many different things, or, depressed or whatever it might be. And rather than blasting your opinions and your thoughts all over the world because you had a bad day and you want to get it out, putting it all out there on social media, I don't think is always the right answer. It's taking that step back to your point, Nate, is and self-reflecting, focus on why is it that you're so upset? Why is it that you're so pissed off? And regroup on your own level before you can actually put forth, and then utilize that when you've regrouped and got back into that positive mindset. Utilize that as your success story for the day or for the week or whatever it may be, and put that out there. Well, because I think that's something that so many people can relate to, and it's not trying to be a motivational pusher. It's you're putting yourself out there in a way that allows others to see there's positivity in it, but it starts from within.
No, I think showing hard work, I think showing, progression and all that stuff. Bobby Hirschman's out there, and he's been a big supporter of the podcast, and he's in Philly. And I think he's busting balls a little bit. But, I said, share if you're enjoying. He says, I'm not sure yet. And he's talking about the, I try not to listen to the news and all that stuff. You follow Bobby Hirschman, and he is constantly, he's posting, he's active on social media, right?
Yeah.
So he's on Instagram, he's on Facebook. I don't know about Twitter, but he's out there, and he is 100% posting, heading into the office. He's posting, going in, like he works 2 jobs that I know of, maybe more, but he's in the trucking industry, and he's showing all this stuff, the production throughout all this stuff. We had t-shirts. They're actually back there if that's what you're looking for.
I was looking for them.
Sean, do you mind, right behind you, behind that stupid box, there's the t-shirt we have out here for Bobby Hirschman. But the point is
Not that one.
Not that one. They're the blue ones. Yeah, the navy ones. We have them out here, Bobby. But my point is that Bobby is one that he busts balls and he does all this stuff, but it's really nice to see him. Yeah, give that to Nate while I'm talking. It's really neat to see him actually still posting some of the daily stuff, daily grind stuff. And it's cool. And he is an opinionated kind of guy, but he's also saying, don't, him.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's like, he's saying, don't get involved in it. Well, you don't have to put it over the podcast shirt. But anyways.
Well, you still have
A lot
two
of
more
gray.
podcast shirts.
Bay,
3.
what is it?
No, 2.
Bay Shipping LLC,
Yeah.
Newcastle, Delaware.
There you go. So
Bobby's a fun guy.
He is.
He'd be a guy. He'd be a guy good to have in your life
It's a T-shirt with a pocket.
because he's one of those friends that is never going to let you get away with not being as good as you can be, and it's going to fucking.
That's what you need right there.
Yeah, but it would drive you crazy often, I'm sure. But you can't ever just be lackadaisical. You can't ever get complacent. He's not going to allow complacency. Man, you can't ask for anything else out of a friend. I mean, that's a good friend. So
This is about time you actually showed the t-shirt.
We've showed it. This is the first time anyone's worn it.
I'm a big fan of him, and I don't know him that well, but I love that he doesn't allow complacency out of his friends, and I think that's pretty damn cool.
Well, I think that's a big part of it. But again, I've never seen him, and this is just for anyone that's listening. You don't know, some people don't even know us. They don't know Bobby Hirschman. They don't know him from Adam. But you see this person that is still grinding, is still getting along with everything the best they can. And if they run into an obstacle, either they get quiet on social media or they get quiet if you know them personally, maybe. But the greatest thing about it is that if you keep people along for the struggle, especially the individuals that are closest to you, I find that my social media posts, the one audience that it doesn't reach is, at least they don't talk about it. They probably do talk amongst themselves, is my family. Like they don't really comment. They don't really like a whole lot. You know what I mean?
I'm not friends with any of my family other than my
Really?
brother. My brother's not even on Facebook. He's smarter than me. And my mom,
Doesn't take much.
I don't want to ruin my relationship with her by having her as a Facebook friend. So yeah, it's just
I think that you're asking about action steps.
actionable.
So action item list is stay the course. It's to try to bring the best out of other people. And to Nate's point, and I agree completely, because I've been there, and I think I've said this many times on the podcast, is that you have to take care of yourself. The health is the biggest thing. And that is, I've said it before since all this shit started, is that, you talk about, oh, we want to take care of everyone else. And it's all about, saving lives and all that stuff. It's about other people and all that bullshit. Because when it came down to it, when this shit started, and Dustin, you're in the retail of groceries.
Yeah.
You couldn't find toilet paper anywhere because you know why?
Everybody took
fuck
as much
you.
as they could.
Because fuck you.
Now you can't find paper towels.
Now you can't find, whatever. But my point is that it's all sounds good. You know what I mean? And it all sounds great. And I think there are people that are really caring about other people. I don't mean to say that no one is doing that, but as a whole, it comes down to that survival. Why couldn't you find, and still struggle to find, ammo? You know what I mean? It was more people were buying ammo when COVID started than when the protest started. And I think that has something to do with the fact that it is truly about when it's the unknown, which was COVID. People were panicking and they don't trust anyone.
My little brother just texted me, glad you finally realized I'm smarter than you.
Well, at least he's on social media. He's listening.
No, he's on YouTube.
He's on YouTube.
Yeah.
All right. That's still somewhat.
And
yeah.
it's recorded, so it's on the record.
Oh, God.
Ryan Jones says Steve Cramp president. Why? Because fuck you. It's not bad.
Hashtag focus.
We've already seen that it has worked.
Hashtag focus 2024.
Yeah.
That's happened already.
But you were talking about, I mean, the toilet paper, the ammo thing. It's still a very small percentage. Brittany and I went to the store, I remember, and we were like, we need to grab one thing. You could buy multiples, and we don't need that much. Let's not be that person. And I think there's a lot of people that were thinking that way.
Why?
I think it was a small percentage.
But even I got in that mode where it was like, all right, so now it was that Liz's, parents couldn't find toilet paper. So now it's like I was driving to the post office in Gahanna, Ohio. And I'm like, oh, there's a CVS. I might as well pop in there. They had signs, limit whatever. And I'm like, I'll pick up a 4-pack, in case we need it, in case it really does go away. Because we've talked about toilet paper on this podcast before.
Yes, we have.
I have very strong beliefs about it.
Yeah, because I mean,
Treat yourself.
It's
all right?
a
Well,
big
because-
shelf
Crock of
item,
shit.
that's why.
no, for those of you
It
who
takes up a
didn't
lot of space.
for those of you who didn't catch it in earlier episodes, everyone on social media during all the COVID shit has been saying, oh, we got to take care of one another and help each other. But then as soon as this shit first started, everyone went out and bought as much toilet paper.
They
as
were
they could.
literally concerned about their shit.
Some people sat there and bought a bunch of it and then tried to sell it at ridiculous secondary prices, like secondary prices that would make the bourbon industry blush.
But you know
And-
what? There
think
were
that's
other.
true.
So what happened? We need to take care of ourselves. But then as soon as we go to the grocery store, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you. Yes, please.
Yeah.
There were other people as well, though. Dave, the guy that's been commenting,
Dave Campbell.
that has the Trader Joe's in Athens, literally sent me a cardboard box full of Trader Joe's stuff as a COVID little package.
Care package.
And I sent him a cigar package back. And then I had to tell him to take down some of the cigars he was posting because they weren't out yet.
I like what Ray Chester said.
I was going to say that. I was going to point that out.
Yeah.
Your 2024 presidential
There you go,
campaign
right there.
slogan.
Ray Chester voting from Vietnam. He wouldn't vote for me, but I mean, he could see the posters. And he says in the yard, GFY and Focus. Yeah,
He would
yeah,
probably
What's
be the guy
GFY?
that goes on like the news and says
Good
he
for you.
knows you and
Shut up,
interviews.
Justin. No, it's not. What's GFY?
go fuck yourself.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like Ryan said, Steve Grant for president. Why? Because fuck you. I don't believe in that. I just think that is a mentality. I think the more you embrace the actual facts, you're better off. I like where Jonathan was trying to steer this conversation, because there's a tendency that even if we are focused and we are trying to, my whole thought was to regroup, and it is extremely easy to get caught up in negativity. I
It
had a
spreads.
guy today come into the shop, right? And he's been coming in, and Jonathan was actually there as soon as this happened.
Yeah.
And it's like, you treat him right. You treat, his let's call his girlfriends come in to buy these 3-punch cigars.
I know who you're
Punch
talking about.
Maduro. And yeah, so Nate, what I'm talking about.
Thank you
So-
for supporting Punch, sir.
No, he's a great guy. His lady friends are great. I'm not even saying like that. If there's an inch, anyways, but it's like I saw him pull up, so I went in the back, pulled 3-punch Maduro Rothschilds, and I set him down on the counter, and he comes in and he says, we have a great typical relationship. It's always positive. And he comes in, he's like, how much is a box or a pack of Marlboro Reds? And me being me, I'm like, well, for you, it's $8 out the door. And he's like, what is it for other people? I'm like, $8. Just joking. Well, you charged so-and-so $11. And I'm like, excuse me?
No.
And so it's like, I was in a good mood, but even that, I was like, and so I tried to sort through it and everything else. I said, when was this? He says, well, a week and a half ago. I was like, well, what was going on? What was the amount and all this stuff? And I tried to like figure it out. He's like, no, I'm not one to go on, Yelp or, reviews or anything like that. But it's like, and I was just like, you know what? Like,
Because
and I said, well, with your discount that we give you, this is where it comes out to. And with this, it should be like this. If I forgot to give them your discount that we extend to you, he's like, well, I didn't ask for that discount. I'm like, this is like that thing over $3. So by the time he's in the shop, and then all of a sudden he wants to buy more cigars and all this stuff, and it's like this is like stewing. Like I'm stewing at this point. I'm like, because again, yeah, it's like fuck you, man. Like
I almost left. He was so angry. I thought he was going to hit me. So yeah,
no, but it was one of those things that before he left, and Brian actually rung him up, and he gave him a better discount on a box of cigars. And before he left, I pulled out $3 out of my pocket and I put it on the counter. I said, "Hey, before you go, I just want to make sure there's no bad, feelings there." Because you know what? Because like it's not that me being a bigger man, but it's like if that's that big of a sticking point after all these years you coming in the shop that over $3 that you took someone else's word that I charged you wrong. And Brian even said afterwards, like, "Yeah, she probably asked for a lighter."
Yeah, they probably bought one of those.
But it doesn't matter.
Cheap lighters.
No, he put it in the Wounded Warrior.
Oh, that's nice.
Which is fine.
If they buy one of those Jeep lighters, those Jeep lighters.
I didn't take it back out. I thought about it. I didn't take it back out.
But no,
I don't like
literally,
it when you try to do the right. That was one of my examples, and it might be a stretch, but it was fresh on my mind that this is something that you try to treat people right, and then they do not care.
It's just not good enough.
It's the fact that I wronged you.
Right. But at the end of
And
the
it
day,
could
all
just
that
be a
matters,
clerical thing, or it could be something that no, actually, if you tell me exactly when and where, I can pull up that transaction and we can sort it out. And if it's my mistake, absolutely.
Almost like
but
that
you
phone
came
call.
in guns a blazing, and I tried it like that. That sets me off.
Almost like that phone call I took Saturday night.
Yeah.
That guy.
But at the end of the day, you did the right thing. And that's what I always hang my hat on. And when a customer gets mad at me when they shouldn't, when I think they shouldn't, I mean, you've got to be insecure. You got to be secure in that, you're doing the right thing. And you're in the customer service business, and you made that guy. He's probably happy now. He's probably
maybe
going to keep buying from you. You don't want to take a lot of shit off people, and you don't want to lay down and let people walk all over you. But we're in this customer service business, and we're going to deal with a few bad apples along the way.
That guy probably doesn't realize that we actually have a code in our system that we punch in for all cigarette purchases.
No, yeah, he doesn't. But again, it was one of those things that
he same price for everybody because we don't make shit off a pack of cigarettes. So if someone's getting a discount on a pack of cigarettes, like
no, that's not even the point. Honestly, I got to be honest. That's not the point. It's the fact that you do this for that long and you take care of someone, and then it's
like you do realize
they're like, oh, you did that, and it's over $3, and it's like you didn't even come in and ask, like, hey, like.
That's the new baseline.
It is the baseline. That's my point. Is that it wasn't the fact that like, hey, a week and a half ago, so and so came in to buy my cigars and also bought a pack of cigarettes, and she thinks he overcharged her. I'm like, oh,
they bought a lighter.
Well, I'm like, oh, well, what happened? That's a conversation.
Yeah.
He came in trying to, I guess, qualify what happened and call me out on it. And if I would have said, well, it's $11 normally, he'd be like, oh, okay. No, I was being honest, like always.
Well, the price is right there, $7.44.
But they come in and they're trying to prove a point. And that is me also trying to prove a point here is that when it is you coming in and you have a little bit of higher level of adrenaline, there's a little anxiety there.
Oh yeah, I've been there.
We talk about anxiety. We talked about anxiety before the podcast. When things are going on, you do, and I think that's where we're at a lot of the times right now. Is that there's
the
a
leash
high
is short.
There's a short leash. There's high anxiety. There's high adrenaline.
High tension.
And there's high tension, as Dustin said. And there's also hot topics that are piping hot.
Yeah.
And he doesn't even realize that as often as he comes in and buys those 3 cigars and the discount that you give him, like he has saved enough off of retail
Not the point.
where he could have bought
Not
a
the
box.
point. Not the point. I got to be honest. That's not the point.
I know
think
it's not, but
the point is, and Bobby's out there still. Bobby Hirschman, he says he's not worth this right now for the show. I'm not really venting in a sense that I'm over it. At the time, I could look back at my Apple Watch, probably my heart rate went up a little bit because it does bother me a little bit. But when it comes into the reality of it, is that is what I was saying, is that the people come in with this heightened sense of adrenaline and anxiety because they think that they're being wrong. Their feelings are hurt. That's fine. But you have to be able to address that. You actually have to be able to communicate with someone and tell them that.
I think
don't come in with a chip on your shoulder,
Yeah.
whatever the situation is. Going back to social media and everything else, you know what I mean? I like where Jonathan was going with this. I'm going to keep coming back to this because that was what my sticking point was. And I'm happy to have you on, Jonathan, Dustin and Nate, you guys are in the garage every week, and I value you guys' opinion, but I always love having someone in every once in a while that has a different perspective, that he is about the action item list.
Yeah.
Like, how do we actually regroup?
Bitching
And I think that's
is beautiful, and we all need to do it.
well, that's venting and bitching, but it doesn't get you anywhere.
No, I mean, and I want to make this world better. You want to make this world better. We all do. We all want to be a part of the solution. And I think it's easy to sit here and say we're doing it better than those people that we're looking at. And I know I'm not doing everything I can. And we got to figure out a way to help the situation. And
So what is it? Live by example?
well, I think one thing we talked about was if you're going to post, let's get some positivity. Let's get some normalcy in there. I think getting groups of people together that are not like-minded.
No, I like that. I like that scenario that you had the other day.
I love it. You get together and you talk, and you got to get reasonable people together, but it makes all the difference in the world. You have real conversations. You can sit there and get in depth on things and understand people's viewpoint.
Mm-hmm.
But I think empathy, I'll go back to that. I feel like that's what we're lacking. We're lacking the ability to look at things from other people's perspective and why they might feel the way they do. And you know, everyone matters. You know, in my opinion, they've got a viewpoint. They've got a life experience. This guy that came in has some life experience that he's on the defensive about this, and he thinks he's getting screwed by the store.
That's a good point.
And dude, if we understand that, when those people mouth off or act crazy, but at the same time, I've been dismissing people because of their social media posts.
Yeah.
And I don't ever want to really talk to some of these people again because they've turned me off so badly by that bulldog mentality where they just attack.
You don't have to like my gym check-ins.
I've never liked one.
Like, not only liked on Facebook, but liked
No, I've
genuinely.
never liked it in my
Your own
head.
personal.
Waking up, hungover.
You took
Never
never
had
You at the gym, focus.
I was
had
at
a
the
dream
gym
of liking
hungover.
it.
And
Steve's at the gym. Fuck you, Steve.
I'm walking my dog and cussing him out because I don't want to be
Me or your
walking around.
dog?
No, I'm cussing my dog out because I don't
Yeah.
want to walk around the block. And yeah, it's horrible, Steve.
I think to your point also, Jonathan, the next step beyond that, spreading that positivity is Nate's point of it is starting with yourself. And we can get worked up over what's going on, but we still got to regroup ourselves and keep moving forward.
Well, I think you got to bring other people in there. I think that's the starting point, and that's where the people are joking around about, the focus thing. I mean, that's my own thing. I already explained that. Like, back when I was trying to really regain control of my life, that was a big part of it. It was something hit me, wanted to do it, and I've struggled with it since then. I mean, the last several years, I have not been as disciplined and all that stuff. When it comes to this stuff, when it comes to even talking with people or having discussions with people, everyone goes up and down. You know what I mean? You think you got a level head on and all that stuff, and then you have this one conversation like today, and I wasn't as level headed, but I reflect on it, and it's like, if that conversation happened again, how would I handle it?
Mm-hmm.
Nate, we were talking the other night. You talked about that, and
Saturday.
and it's tough because I bring in this mentality of when I had a lot of employees that reported to me, and now working in this industry and doing this type of thing where it's more just putting yourself out there, and it's more kind of open communication all the time. I don't know how to have a conversation with Nate, who's a close friend of mine, who's also, we work together, and there was it wasn't like I'm going to put the manager hat on. It was like, all right, so how can we, working together, talk about this thing without it sounding like I'm, giving him managerial guidance. And
And you did a very good job at that.
Well, I appreciate that.
Well, my company's smart enough to put no one below me. So yeah, they've made some great moves, and that's one of their best.
I went from a staff of 120 people underneath me to 3 or 4-ish, and they're kind of underneath me. That's it. I do payroll. That's an email.
I love it. So
You're still our boss.
My buddy Sean is watching now, and he's a military vet that did some crazy shit overseas. Like he has had a
Can't talk
career.
about it.
He has had a career. I will say that. And then Dave that's been commenting is our liberal hippie of our friend group.
Is he liberal?
I would say he's left moderate, I would say. And we used to sit at the cigar shop, and Sean's more on the right wing, Dave's more on the left wing. I was 22, so I was just listening. Just hard to believe.
22.
Yeah, that's when I met these guys, and they brought me into their fold at the cigar shop. And man, I learned a lot from them. And we had the greatest conversations. Not one time did Sean and Dave ever yell at each other at the cigar shop and one of them get up and storm out. But man, they both had life experiences that taught me so much. And I think a big thing that we don't do as much as we should, and I have tried to make a focus on this, you got to hang out with some people that think very differently than you. You got to hang out with some people that have different opinions. Because in the cigar world, especially, it's very easy for the majority of the cigar world is on one side of things. And you can just be in an echo chamber. And you got to challenge yourself, just like in work or working out or anything. If you're not challenging that muscle group, if it's not sore the next day, no, I'm saying if it's not a little sore the next day, you probably didn't do anything. You probably didn't grow at all. And so these conversations need to leave you a little bit sore. They need to leave you with a little bit of challenge, a little bit of rethinking your ways. Sorry.
No, you're fine. I was just going to add to your point, Jonathan, is find those people that have different opinions, but also find that commonality too. Yes. I think is also the challenge on top of that.
Well, find a respectful person that has different opinions.
Right. And I think that's also the difficult part too, is find that person who's respectful and respectable to have a difference of opinions, but you can have that actual intellectual conversation with them and have that mutual respect that we have a difference of opinions, but we can get everything that we're thinking out on the table and sort it out together.
We can be honest. We could say things that we wouldn't say in a social media sphere. We could say things that, hey, this has been in my brain. This is something I'm worried about. This is something I'm thinking
and you can leave that conversation not agreeing with what the other person said whatsoever, but that mutual respect and understanding you leave as friends.
Yeah. So my point was with the regroup thing, and I love seeing these comments that are coming through. So if you guys are listening and enjoying it, please do share as we round out part 2 here as we roll through this. But the regrouping thing is that I can 100% appreciate people that live and die by their objectives of trying to make change. I can appreciate that. I do think that you miss out, but I appreciate the work that people do. The passion and the fact that that's what it really takes. I don't want to say that if you're wide right, wide left, you're for this, for that, or against this or against that. Keep doing you. Absolutely. The biggest thing that I will say that I think that might sneak into a point is, once again, is listen and educate yourself. Listen and really understand to the best of your ability, not where people are coming from, but try to understand why they think the way they do, so that you can have an intelligent conversation. Think about, so we talked about the bulldog mentality. Anyone out there that was in a debate class or has been involved in a debate, anyone that has had to work in a company that it wasn't all positive, you had to fight a relationship, anything, right? You had to educate yourself so you knew the facts. And I remember, when you talk about like philosophy classes and stuff like that, I did take a couple of those, and you guys all might think this is bullshit, but one of the things that really frustrated me in college is that when I was in philosophy courses was it didn't fucking matter if your argument was right or wrong. It's who had the stronger argument.
They used to make you argue a side.
Dude, I had a philosophy course that I had to write 3 papers a week. One was for this based on this information. One was against this based on this information. And then it was, what's the stronger argument? Who's got a better case?
Right.
And that's where you start thinking about, like, well, what facts are actually valid? That's where you look at these alerts and you're like, well, what is the statistical population that they took this data from? And you look at it, you're like, was it 1 million people? Was it 10 people? Was it on a street corner in one part of town in this suburb versus it was taken over all of these different demographic type of areas, like you have to qualify it. And I think that's one of the things that I really look at all this stuff is that you really have to qualify what you're talking about by doing all the things we're talking about. It's really about listening. It's about educating yourself. It's about surrounding yourself with different people that think like you, think against you, think differently than you, and all that stuff. But it's not just blinders on.
Yeah, I mean, that's where's the line there from putting your head in the sand and pretending like
Your head, or even putting a line in the sand.
yeah.
You put a line in the sand, and this is the line you do or do not cross. And if you cross that line, I don't believe in you anymore as a person.
Yeah.
I think
I think it's getting to know the person first. I think it's respecting that person. Then you can go to that conversation.
I think you draw the line in the sand, and then you put your ass in the sand and share a drink.
You put your toes in the sand.
All right, Zach Brown. All right.
Toes in the water.
What are we at
asses.
here? I think we need to round this out.
Yeah.
Dustin, let's go down the line. You go ahead and start. Closing remarks here on part 2.
So, as far as how do we regroup? I think we touched on a lot of really key parts, all of which thanks to Jonathan and his different aspects of it. We have to spread that positivity. I think that's probably the biggest first step for everybody, and we have such a strong community amongst ourselves and the following that we have with the podcast and those of which that are out there. And I really feel like there are many, many more like-minded people that are in the world. We just have to broaden that reach even more and spread that like a wildfire, and really help each other grow and show the world that we can come together and we can have differences of opinion, but also respect each other's opinions and move forward.
Yeah.
And not have that grudge against the other person just because they don't believe what you believe in. And at the same time, if you are struggling at your own level with that anxiety or that anger with everything that's going on, then you need to be able to take that step back and regroup within yourself and focus on your own positivity. What drives you? What motivates you? What spreads that love in yourself? And utilize that to restart and take those right steps in the right direction to help spread even that positivity. One point a manager has always told me is every day when you leave work, fire yourself. And when you come back in, you rehire yourself and start with that same type of fire as if you were to be rehired to a new job. And I think
that is an interesting take.
It is, but I think it can also kind of
bold move, Cotton.
bold move, Cotton.
Let's
We'll
see
see
how
how
it
it works
plays
out. But I think that kind of helps with life as well. And when the day ends, you reflect on the day and what decisions did you make? Were they necessarily the right ones? Were they the wrong ones? Learn from it, and then just use that next day to start off on the right foot and see what you can do to help yourself grow, but also help others grow by using that active communication.
Yeah.
To spread that passion of we're in this together.
Nice. Nate?
So I bring it back to when I first heard you mention the topic, the about regrouping. The first thing that popped in my head was take care of yourself. Like,
Yep.
You have to get yourself right.
Mm-hmm.
In
We've
order
been hanging out too much.
Are you saying that's a bad thing?
Maybe not.
Oh,
No.
Okay. You're okay. But no, you gotta start with yourself. You gotta take care of yourself.
Yeah.
Whether it's mentally, physically, whatever. Because if you're not in the right mindset, if you don't have the right attitude or mental strength, it's going to be really hard for you to deal with other people.
Yeah.
And one of the things that my wife had said earlier that I actually threw up on the comment before she started commenting was hurt people hurt people. So if
Say that again.
hurt people,
Just 2 words repeated.
as in people.
Oh yeah, I'm trying to look at this.
Like a
She
rap
didn't
song.
post it. She texted it to me, and I put it up on the comments.
I can't share that.
So if you are someone who feels hurt,
So if you're in a negative mindset, you project
you're going to
that. You
project that
it, yeah.
negative mindset or that hurt
I
onto
gotcha.
other people. And I think that's what she was trying to get at. So that kind of goes back to what I was saying, like, take care of yourself, and then you're able, because let's face it, you're going to have much more of an influence if you're talking positively about something than I think you will if you're talking negatively about something.
I think that's a valid point. Yeah.
And I think part of the reason is people want to hear things positive. They're kind of weary and leery of things that are negative. Like, they take those things with a grain of salt. Like, they want to hear the good things. So if you have yourself in the right mind place, they're more likely to have that discussion with you. And then lastly, I can't remember who said it. I think, if I remember correctly, it was a famous comedian and actor who had said it. He said it years
That
ago.
was Bill Cosby.
No,
Easy,
not
easy.
not him. Not him at all.
An edit button.
Delete.
I just got fired.
From the podcast.
Cosby Show was
Oh.
a good show.
No.
Sure was.
But no, what this person was trying to say,
And we just got deleted off Facebook. Huh?
and when I say
Tune
going
in
back
on
years,
YouTube.
like, this wasn't even during like the current
Yeah.
federal administration. This was even before that. Like, there was so much negativity even then. It's like, talk to your next door neighbor. Like, if everyone would actually just go and talk to their next door neighbor, you'd realize that you don't hate each other as much as you might think. Like, you might actually have more in common than you think.
Yeah.
And just
I think
having
that'd be great to this. I look around and you see like certain, especially right now in the US, you have, a Biden sign. If you could have a Trump sign and a Biden sign in houses next to each other and actually shaking hands and sharing a drink, I think that is where you have some of the most impact on true growth and regrouping.
and you're going to have more authentic conversation.
Jonathan?
I don't know. I think at the end of the day, I don't like conversations that don't have steps, and I like that we came up with some actionable steps. And like I want every conversation to end with a learning, tidbit for me or for the other person.
Yeah, there's a learning moment, really.
Yeah, and I learn most from those who aren't like me, those who have different life experiences. I have very few friends that are very similar to me. I don't really like them generally. I like people that are very different.
Small
from me.
friend group.
And my wife jokes about it. My friend groups are always so damn weird.
What does your wife do again for a living?
She's a psychologist in the federal prison system.
God bless her, and
Yeah.
good luck. Good luck.
And she makes
Lord
fun of
help
me
her.
for my friend choices. So yeah,
that's a way of counseling.
yeah. So I think, we've all got value, and find the value in those around you. Find value in people that you don't necessarily see the value in, because they've got something to offer. They got something to teach you. And let's be a little more teachable and a little less sure of our thoughts and our beliefs, and let's be a little more teachable. And I just want to I want to be a part of a solution. I want to bring people together. I don't want to separate. I love learning from people that have gone through things and done things and had different parental situations that I have, different upbringing, different socioeconomic class, different races. I love to learn from people that are different from me. And I think if we all spend a little more time listening to those that are different from us and taking something from it, we'll all be a little better off.
Yeah, I agree. I'm gonna try to pull up this this comment again. I think my eyes are getting bad. Is that the right one? No, that's not it. There it is.
That's Sean. That's my boy.
So Ian Sean Anderson, you call him Sean.
And that's not him, the girl in the picture.
Well, if it is, we need to start.
He's
saying,
not.
"Are you
He's
18 or
not
older?"
nearly that cute.
So he says, but the trick to our conversations across the board and bringing everyone in was and is to start by finding common things. say bourbon, cigars, music, whiskey, or I'm sorry, work. Where's my head at? Anything like that. Common ground makes the difficult conversations easier. There's a I'm thinking back to year one. We were doing this podcast and Jake was a part of it. Is one of the biggest things that I've really learned over the years is as you grow older, right? So and I think it explains a lot of where we are at as adults. When you grow up, who are your friends? So you're a kid in a neighborhood. Who are your friends? Kids in school or kids in the neighborhood?
Yeah.
Right. So the proximity.
Yeah.
Nothing to do with like you don't like everyone, but you're friends with them. You hang out at houses. You play. Dating myself, I don't think they do it anymore. You probably play Call of Duty together, or whatever, but across the world. But at a certain point, you played backyard football, wiffle ball. You had this. You lived out in the country, Dustin.
Oh yeah, man.
I didn't have any
did
friends through high school.
All right, this is.
I can believe that.
We,
All right, so
I really
all right,
didn't.
all right. I'm not
Played
going
for,
off
like,
of this. All right,
hours
Dustin.
and
All right, no, like I don't want to see the comment feed blow up. No, no, but I'm saying like as you grow up, that's who your friends are. You get into high school, it's common hobbies, it's things that you are involved in. These are your friends, right? So then you graduate and you go to college or you go to work and you do these things, and now all of a sudden there's two paths in a sense. You have friends like I had in college that were roommates or in the same hall in the dorm that you were assigned to. If you are 18 and you're working, you might have some carryover from high school, or you might have because you didn't leave the area, or you have friends that are now in the same trade as you, right? So now you already have work friends. Then as you progress, your social circle, fast forward 20s, 30s, and beyond, you have either work friends, neighbor friends, or you have typically your kids' parents as friends because of now their social circle is that.
Yeah.
These are the people. Everyone else moves away. They have their own life and all that stuff. There's a reason that I think that, I don't know the stats across the board in the world, but in the United States, the divorce rate is terrible. It's shockingly high.
It's actually going down.
Hopefully. I think we might see a spike. There'll be a spike in divorces and there'll be a spike in babies here coming up. However, my point is that as you introduced the social media side of it, when you look at the whole let's regroup, it's time to regroup thing, is that it used to be that you didn't necessarily have a shared hobby or interest. It was purely proximity. That doesn't work very well until you find, if you are lucky enough to have people in your proximity that have shared hobbies. I had a guy in the shop the other day, and he kind of moved away from corporate, and he's now doing this whole farm thing. And he's like, I don't really smoke cigars, but I started smoking cigars again. And, I used to do this. We moved out to the country. We got a farm. I used to live in this really well-off suburb. He says, now, I get done with work and I'm exhausted because it's what I consider real work. I'm really tired. It's physical work. And he says, I found that I would sit down at 10 o'clock and I tried a cigar, and I'm getting into whiskey a little bit, and which is a thing now, right? Obviously, this is where this podcast comes from. But he's like, it was just me. He's like, there I am. I got this headlight thing, headband light,
Headlamp,
and I'm reading a book out by myself. And he's like, but I tell you what, the other week, one of my neighbors who's about a half mile away, we were talking. He came over for a cigar. We started talking. So now you have this combination of proximity
And a hobby.
Mm-hmm.
Now is where that came in from Sean, that there is a common bond. Now you have something else to talk about. Jonathan, you talked about it earlier on your patio last week about football, and then all of a sudden you have all these not like-minded people, and the conversation is somewhat productive.
Oh yeah.
You have this thing where it's like, no, we're here, we're smoking cigars, we're talking football, whatever the hobby is.
We were
right?
also
You
drinking
could talk
and
about
smoking cigars.
I'm saying you could talk about woodwork, you could talk about whatever it might be, you could talk about whatever you're going through, that you have this similarity, you have this connection that I think as you get through the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, that a lot of people lose. And they lose themselves.
Oh, yeah.
Now the only outlet right now is this shit that we're talking about.
Yeah.
It's social media, it's the news, it's everything going on, but there's a lack of connection. So to that point, I'll say my closing remarks are the fact that you need to find connection with people, because that is, for me, the lost connection with people is that same toilet paper thing.
Mm-hmm.
I care about everyone, but when it comes down to it, it's me and fuck you. Because I gotta take care of me. I gotta take care of my family. Whether it's wiping my own ass or it's putting bullets in a gun, I need to be prepared. So there's a hypocritical standpoint, I think, at that point, that if you stay on that level of let's care about what other people think, that's where the communication that Dustin, you were talking about, is having that open line of communication and trying to find common interests. Because whether you're on the left, you're right, whatever it is, whoever you're voting for, whatever the issue is, if you have a disagreement, if you can actually, beyond the fact that we're both, humans and all that stuff, and that we're going to populate this world together, which is missed a lot of times right now, is that you have some sort of a common ground that you can scale it back.
Common hobby, but it just, common ground. Mm-hmm.
You can have a conversation with someone if you take in consideration that we all, our opinions matter to a point that I may not agree with you, but there's a level of respect that is absolutely missing right now. And you want to talk about an action item list right now, Jonathan? Respect is one of the biggest things that you can have for someone, the biggest things you can do. You can disagree, you can have that verbal vomit on someone, but if you don't respect what they're saying, it's not worth anything. And vice versa. If someone's doing that to you, you don't value their opinion. You know where they stand, and it's the same thing over and over again. So I think we need to regroup. I think we need to realize that we're all in it together. And I don't care who gets elected in November in the United States. I don't care what happens with COVID. Not that I don't care, but I'm saying I don't care where we head with this. I think that we have to realize that after it's all said and done, when we get into 2021, we have a choice of whether or not we want 2021 and beyond to be the same as 2020 in so many respects.
We have the choice right now.
But I'm saying, you got to start respecting people. If you disagree, fine. If you don't want to talk to them again, fine. But you're not going to change their mind in a fucking tweet or a Facebook post, and you're not going to change their mind by just throwing up on their face with whatever you believe.
Yeah.
You guys have anything else?
I think you summed it up.
All right. Gentlemen, ladies out there, we appreciate you. Happy Whiskey Wednesday, episode 136, part 2.
In the books.
Share it, like it, love it.
Thanks for all
Appreciate
my
you guys.
cigar shop guys for joining in. I love you guys.
Thanks for bringing them. I hope they tune in when you're not here just so we can talk bad
Why
about
would
you.
they? Yeah.